All right, we are live on the Vertcoin channel, and we are live on Josiah's channel. So, guys, welcome very much to the Talking Blockchain. So, normally you guys would hear me say, welcome to this episode of Vertcoin Talk, but this time we're doing a collaboration with Josiah from the DigiByte team, and just wanted to welcome him to our channel, and I want to thank him for having us on his channel, too.
Yeah. So, I guess likewise, thank you. This is kind of the first time I've done like a double stream. So, yeah, this is cool. Let's see how this goes here. So we've got basically the two different channels. We've got some live chat happening and things as well. We're gonna have a good mix, I think, of both DigiByte, Vertcoin supporters, general kind of blockchain interest as well. So hopefully this will be not just educational, but also incredibly entertaining. And
this is laid back. You know, we're just hanging out, talking crypto, talking what we're doing in our camps, what's going on in the future, getting some ideas on some things, kind of like the hack that just happened with a big exchange, and you know where we see where
we're
they
allowed
may
to say
have
the
gone
name,
wrong.
right? Like,
oh yeah. Oh, I'm putting it up on the screen. I'm showcasing it right now. Cryptopia alleged hack. You know, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to dive into a whole bunch of stuff. Plus, answer questions on both channels. So, if you guys have a question for me or Josiah, put it out there. We will get to those right away. So,
do we want to start with some Cryptopia juiciness then?
Yeah, let's do that. So just in case anybody isn't familiar, Cryptopia was allegedly hacked. They have turned this whole situation over to their local police, and you've seen people say, you know, multi-millions of dollars worth of stuff has been stolen. They said it was like $1.8 million. I don't know where they get the numbers, but you know, this is another example of an exchange that holds your coins and are susceptible to security breaches, and as a result, you lose millions and millions of dollars.
So these guys, so I'm based in Auckland, New Zealand. These guys are actually down south in Christchurch, New Zealand.
Okay.
The final number that I've seen is a little over 4 million US dollars, which equates to like 6 million New Zealand dollars. So I mean, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of people. Now, the really, really sucky thing is I was talking with a workmate of mine from my day job. I said, hey, man, have you heard about the Cryptopia hack? And he was like, oh, what do you mean Cryptopia? Yeah, the Cryptopia hack, right? Like, so I had to explain to him. He was mining Zcash back in the day and then selling that and buying DigiByte. Poor dude had $1,000 worth of DigiByte on there, which he can't get to right now. Unfortunately, he didn't get the message on the, was it January 3rd Keys event?
Yeah.
And so he's right now going, well, there's, you know, however many like months worth of mining down the tube, like.
Yeah, and I mean, we at least advocate, if you're mining, mine to the core wallet, because it is designed to handle those small increment transactions. We always recommend never mine to an exchange, let alone store your funds on an exchange, unless you're comfortable losing what you have on an exchange, because stuff like this can happen. You know, there's no way, and I saw the one thing I'd love to touch on and get your opinion on is the fact that a lot of these funds got sent over to Binance. And then CZ at Binance was like, oh yeah, we saw the funds come in, we've frozen them. And the last time I had checked, I thought with Binance, if you have purchased a certain amount, you have to do know your customer. So wouldn't they know who this is that's doing this sort of transactions?
Well, so that's funny. I tweeted out about this last night because I was following it quite closely. Obviously, being in New Zealand, the local media is in a bit of a stir about it. And in fact, I've been on the phone myself with the local radio, the national newspaper, and things like that. And I've even been talking with our other local exchanges like Easy Crypto New Zealand. We'll come back to that a little bit later. But yeah, so I've been following it. And I remember basically watching it on the Ethereum Blockchain Explorer. What do they call it one? It's not just that main one.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if I've ever looked at the Ethereum Blockchain Explorer.
It's confusing as hell compared to like the Vertcoin or DigiByte one. But anyway, it's probably
the ERC20 tokens have always been like, I don't, you know, but
yeah. So I'm looking on the Explorer and I'm like, hang on a second, that was sent. Like, it's just gone and left the wallet where they had withdrawn it to, because I'd originally seen it on the whale alerts where they're like, millions of dollars has just moved off Cryptopia, whale alerts on Twitter. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So, you know, someone's gone and taken a whole lot out. They've probably bought a whole lot or something. Turns out it was just the hack, and they'd gone and pulled them out of their hot wallet. But so I'm looking on there and I'm like, right, well, so they've gone and deposited the funds. First thing you do is you fire up Reddit, because obviously when everyone wants to go for terrible news, that's the best place to go. You go to Reddit. And so long story short, somebody had already started a bit of a thread and they were talking about it. People were tweeting at CZ from Binance going, the funds have been deposited. What are you going to do to stop this? Like, I mean, so it's tough, because on the one hand, I'm a big believer in the idea, right? Like that all coins should be equal.
Mm-hmm.
One Vertcoin is one Vertcoin, one Ethereum is one Ethereum. But at the same time, it's like you have things like this, and you know that they've been taken from a hack. Do you then want some kind of a way to effectively like blacklist those UTXOs and basically say, well, no more, we're not going to be allowing those, I suppose, to be traded on our platform? So anyway, I did a little bit more digging, because originally, CZ said that Binance weren't aware. He said he was going to look into it. He goes and looks into it. Turns out they've managed to save some of the funds. It turns out they'd only actually deposited a couple $1,000. Now, the reason for this is because you are allowed a 2 BTC volume every day on Binance without doing any kind of KYC or AML.
Okay.
And a lot of people have a lot of multiple accounts. And so what we see is these accounts will quite often, rather than signing up for the KYC stuff, you just open 10 accounts. And then you can trade 20 Bitcoin worth every single day. Now, that means that they were able to deposit those 2 BTC worth of metal tokens. Mm-hmm. Presumably, they'd then sold them for, like, just gone 2 Bitcoin worth, sell them for Bitcoin, mm-hmm. or maybe for Ethereum. I don't really know. I didn't bother looking any further than that. And then 24 hours later, they'd pull them off the exchange, and that's, what's 2 Bitcoin at the moment, like $7,000 or something?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, I mean, and so all they have to do is repeat the process over and over and over again. They never have to do KYC, and it just completely goes. Now, how do you feel about, when we had our double spend attack, 51% attack back in December, we had looked through the blockchain, and one of our developers had developed a tool that allowed you to go back and look at the duplicate spends, and it gave you the addresses. And one of the ideas that we were floating is to prepare this, is to give, allow exchanges to use this technology to see the addresses associated with the double spend, because the majority of the time when it has happened, it just goes to that address and sits there. Nobody actually ever moves it. But they could somewhat blacklist that address. Now, granted, it doesn't stop somebody from creating a new address or what have you. But how do you feel about exchanges, I guess, in this sense, trying to act like the world police when it comes to hacks in this case?
Yeah, so, right, like, what happens when, let's say it's a really small exchange, or let's say it's like $100 worth, and somebody then comes along and they say to, let's not so much pick on Binance, but let's choose Binance. They come to CZ and they go, hey, man, $100 worth was taken out of my account on Cryptopia New Zealand, and it's found its way into a private wallet and then into Binance. Mm-hmm. I need you to stop it, and I need you to freeze those funds. I don't, I'll be honest, I'm on the fence with this one hard, because I completely see, on the one hand, it is, it's not their job, B, they shouldn't really be doing it. But on the flip side, if they're able to prevent, a large, hack like this from then being filtered out to the rest of the internet, or people buying these other coins or whatever, do we then just kind of say, you know what, fuck it, do it?
If they do it, then the burden of responsibility comes on them. And at the end of the day, I don't know, but this is also from two individuals who, we don't keep our coins on exchanges because we know the risk that's associated with that. It's you get in a really weird slippery slope when you start talking about, hey, can you just roll back the blockchain? Which the majority of real blockchains, you can't do that. But can you? I got
unless
hacked.
You're Ethereum, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I said real blockchains, but that's a different story. If they want you to roll it back, or you're looking for these safety measures at exchanges, it's nice. It's nice if they can do that. It's a good gesture, because the hack has been acknowledged. You know, the exchange has fessed up that this was a hack, but then again, it's currently they haven't broadcasted any information about it. It's all in the police's hands. We don't know who's responsible for the hack. And if I recall correctly, wasn't this exchange run by just a few people? There wasn't a lot of people there in the operation.
Well, originally there was only two guys that started it up, but that was back in 2014, 2015. I don't recall exactly. They've actually grown significantly, and so they've got a large number of full-time staff. I think the last time that I was talking with the senior management there, they said they had around about 60 staff. I don't recall exactly, but that was like
article saying here between 50 and 100 people employed.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
but at the same time,
could this be an inside job? Do you think maybe this could have been somebody internally? I mean, you got 60 people who have access. Well, I wouldn't imagine all 60 people, but you have a good amount of people that have access. What's to stop? And maybe this is why the police are involved. Is maybe they are doing an internal audit and trying to understand if this could have possibly been an inside thing.
So I know the head of cybercrime New Zealand at the New Zealand Police rather loosely. We've dealt with them for a few things for my other day job, and long story short, for them to be so involved, I'm presuming that they're suspecting some kind of potential inside job, because otherwise they would have gone straight to a different security firm.
Okay.
There's a lot more, like, you've got like internationally security firms and things like that who specialize in this. Now, this is obviously not to discount the New Zealand Police, because I've dealt with them and there's some insanely switched on dudes there.
Okay. Even when it comes to blockchain, I would imagine the police really don't understand that stuff at all, even in America or anywhere.
Yeah.
You know.
I've not dealt with them specifically for blockchain. The stuff that I've done has been other kind of fraudulent stuff, like I mentioned with my day job and things like that, and tracking people down. But they know what's up. They're definitely not idiots. They're surprisingly switched on for the bad rap that people would traditionally give police in the media. So these guys, they know what's up. They're cool dudes. But if you were getting them to come in and investigate, my presumption is also because there's the potential for somebody to be prosecuted within New Zealand. Otherwise, why not also involve and make known up front to everybody that you've gone and got some great big security audit firm from effectively the best in the world. You've just gone and lost $6 million. You're going to want to find the culprit any way, shape, or form. You miss like one IP address or something like that in some logs somewhere, and they potentially get away scot-free. So
yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, that's
So I guess I would ask, everybody in both of our channels, we'll take like a little poll. Do you guys? I would imagine this is obviously a huge credibility stain now on the exchange. They probably, it's not like they were kind of known for the coins that nobody have ever talked or heard about. There was a lot
they would list the early coins, and especially the ones that would have bugs in the code and things like that. Like the wallets were always offline.
Yeah. So what do people think as far as, does this erode your trust in an exchange like this, especially if it's an inside job? Or does that kind of give them a little bit of a pass as far as credibility goes if it is an inside job, as opposed to this was a legitimate security issue from an outside source that hacked the exchange and took all the coins? Me personally, if it's an inside job, I'm not as upset necessarily at them because they could do some better internal practices in order to make sure that this doesn't happen. But that's a much different ball game than having an outside source coming in and hacking the exchange and taking the coins.
If they were to come right and basically say, look, we had a 2 of 3 multi-sig wallet set up and all the funds were in there, and we had Tom and Harry came along and they both colluded together and ran off with the funds, and we've caught them and we've got back like $100,000 or something, but we, most of it's gone, but we've got insurance that's going to cover stuff. That would, on a personal level, restore a lot more trust than if they were to basically come out and go, oh, it was somebody from... Well, so I know from my day job, New Zealand regularly gets hit by Palestine, by Russia, and also by certain parts of Europe on the regular. So if they were to come out and basically go, it was, Joe Bloggs from this other country and we don't know where he's gone, but they found a vulnerability in our stuff. That's gonna suck.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know what I guess, because I know there's some exchanges that are only available in certain countries, and I didn't know how wide. I imagine you can use this from all around the world, but it's not as, if this happened to Binance or happened to BitMEX or something like that, it seems like it would be a much bigger issue. Do you think just due to the size and the particular tokens and coins that this exchange ran in has, it's kind of died it down? It's not as big of a deal.
So the thing is they had, they've got, I think it was like 1.4 million customers. Now, last time I heard, Binance had around about 9 million. So they're not exactly small.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if those are active customers.
Yeah, I don't know. So, because I've got an account there myself, because that was where I went back in the day and I bought some BlockNet tokens. But that was like a year ago. And so, although I have an account there, it's definitely not active, and it hasn't been active for 18 months now, whatever. So, I'm looking through the chat here and talking about like Binance or specifically exchanges basically playing judge, jury, and executioner. Kat has a really good point there. And so she basically says maybe have some accounts set up for investors who don't want all of the responsibility, and maybe have the opportunity for others who do. That's an interesting kind of thought, because on the one hand, everything that you do, you're giving custody of your funds over to them.
Yeah.
Over to the exchange. Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's no easy answer for this one, really. Like, this is not an easy fix, an easy solution.
Hey, you're giving up so with assuming responsibility, you have maximum freedom and maximum accountability with what you do with your finances, your coins, what have you, where it's stored, security-wise. You have, it's up to you to be the most responsible for it, to make sure that you're entrusting it to a wallet that is, one, hopefully open source, so people can verify that shady stuff isn't happening, but two, that, it's either offline if you're using a ledger or a treasure wallet or something like that, and it's offline, there's no risk, it's in cold storage. That's the level of responsibility that comes with crypto. What we're asking, as far as the insurance and all other stuff, you're recreating the banking system just on blockchain.
Yeah, just on exchanges. Like, isn't this what we're trying to get away from? Like, it's in the freaking Genesis block of Bitcoin that banks can't be trusted, and here we are, we've recreated them.
Yeah, I mean,
why?
I understand. I understand people losing money, and it sucks. They're losing their coins. They're losing stuff they've invested in. They're losing stuff they've mined. It sucks. Yep. But I would go back to the good old adage of make sure that if you own the keys, it's your coins. If you don't own the keys, it's not your coins. And hopefully they can track this down. Best wishes to them being able to recover some of these funds. But at the end of the day, if you leave your coins on an exchange, this is a possibility. No place is 100% safe from hacking, and especially if it's an inside job, you can have all the firewalls up you want all day long. If there's one vulnerability internally, it's it's for nothing. So if anything out of this whole discussion, I would advocate to everybody who is listening, own your private keys. Make sure they are on a wallet that you control. If you leave it on an exchange, be comfortable with losing that amount, to a hack or to the exchange just folding shop and running away with the coins, because that's happened in the past too.
It has. I was actually so funny, right? So earlier on in the year, I've just seen something pop up in the chat from Steven. I'll come back to that in a second. But earlier on, last year, I was going through and I was collecting a list of all of the exchanges that DigiByte is on. And I wanted to basically have a nice big pretty picture with all their logos and things and showing off their names. And I just thought it would be something cool. Now, anyway, long story short, we did. We went out and we got the picture in the end. But as I was going through, and I had a list, like DigiByte is on these exchanges. And so I would go to their website, grab their logo and things, and kind of look into it. And I basically wanted all their logos in one place. Some of those exchanges had closed down. Some of them are no longer still around. And of the 82 or 3, whatever that we were on, 3 of them had exit scammed. 3 exchanges. I was like, are you serious? Curiosity got me. And I'm like, these exchanges have exit scanned. They're up and gone. So I'm like, wow, where did it go and what happened? And was there any warning signs and things like that? And that's the sad thing, is because you're not in control of it. I mean, look, it was, what's the date today? Today's the 20th. So it was just over 1 year ago that BitConnect up and disappeared. And people were swearing black and blue that was a legitimate project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that doesn't even involve an exchange. That's just a project in general. And but they were blinded by greed and by money and easy returns. And, you know, that's why both of our systems do not advocate, you know, we're going to give you coins if you loan them to other people. You know, there's there's none of that, because to me, that's, now you're generating things out of thin air. You're not doing any work in order to get it, you know, as far as proof of work and stuff of that nature.
Yeah, the whole nothing at stake.
Yeah. That to me is a sign of a project that is, and especially, I think BitConnect, it was closed source. So you had to go to their website, you had to log into their account, into their website in order to transact all of this stuff, in order to set up everything. So it was easy to turn the switch, cut everything off. They've got everybody's money, and they're gone. Yeah. You know, and that's, you know, you were bringing up being on 80 different exchanges. One of the things that people may not understand, and Josiah and I both know because we are kind of on the back end of how these projects are operating and in the weeds when it comes to this stuff. When somebody lists a coin on an exchange, most of the time it's the exchange reaches out to the project, says, hey, we want to list you. And this is where you find where the exchanges that are actually like good exchanges, and then people who are just here to make the quick bucks. At that point, they say, well, we need X number of coins or dollars in order to list you. And depending on the project, if it's an ICO, you can pony up the money. Exactly, yeah. And but the projects are not involved in the maintenance of the wallet on that exchange, the infrastructure on that exchange. We have no insight, none of that. We are, you know, they are taking it upon themselves to download our wallet in order to facilitate using their system to be an exchange. We don't have any control over that. I know we have had one of the kind of a segue into something that I wanted to talk about was the fact that we just announced for Yobit, which is another exchange that uses us, to get everybody to get off of their coins off of that exchange, because they are demanding from us a certain amount of Bitcoin to upgrade their wallet for the fork that we have happening at the end of this month. And we, you know, it's not our job to pay for the exchange to update their software, that they're charging people fees in order to operate. And unfortunately now that wallet on Yobit is in maintenance. People can't remove their coins. And so we as a project are in talks with them right now, like, hey, you need to open up your stuff so people can get their stuff off right now, because if you're not going to upgrade the wallet, they're going to be on a different chain, and that's a major problem. But we have no control over that. We can't force them to do it. You know, DigiByte can't force an exchange to upgrade their software, or list them, or if they come back and say, we're going to delist you if you don't give us 1 Bitcoin to keep you on our exchange. You know, there's nothing that we can do, and especially for projects like ours where we didn't have an ICO, we didn't have a pre-mine, so we don't have tons of money just sitting around that, you know, everything that we have has either been donated to us or we've mined ourselves. You know, we can't just go out and just give money for an extortion like that. And that's been a problem. Luckily, over the last, I'd say 6 months, exchanges have really backed off. And I'm wondering if a lot of that has to do with they are starting to get worried about the laws, you know, for them, for, you know, accepting money or demanding money in order to be listed on an exchange. I know that that's something that the SEC is looking at here in the United States, because that's another reason why we are hesitant to promote when an exchange lists us. We don't want, and this is from the Vertcoin side, because we're doing everything in our power to not be labeled an exchange. We want to be a commodity. So when we post or announce or broadcast that an exchange has now listed us, we are worried that the SEC could look at that as a promotion for people to invest in our project. At that point, it can be considered a security, because we, as Vertcoin, are soliciting investors into our project. So I know we've announced exchanges in the past, you know, when they list us for free and they don't charge us and they're good, and we do a thorough exam on them that, you know, hey, this looks to be a credible exchange, we will announce it. Now, because of that possible regulation that could come down, we're actually scaling back on that. And you know, I might announce it on my personal Twitter, but I'm not going to announce it from the main Twitter, because that's a real threat here in the United States. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have to worry about that at all, given how decentralized you guys are, and you're not really trying to establish a legal entity in a particular country.
Sort of like. So I've I've intentionally turned down access to the main Twitter because I know that I can't be trusted. I would post memes and stupid shit like that all day. It's not. I mean, you've seen some of the things that I post from time to time. And there's a reason why I do it from my own particular. I tell you what, before we kind of get onto that, there's two things. So I'll bring this up now. I'm not too sure. I don't think I'm going to be able to easily screen share this, but I'll read this out. So this is an email that we basically, I sent myself back to Bitfinion after, because we're talking about listing fees here. And so I sent back to these guys, the guy's name was Jared from Bitfinion, so it's not our Jared, the founder at all, but this is, so I said, hi Jared, and they asked for us to use some of the funds that I'd raised, I think for the Venezuela outreach or something. Anyway, so basically I said, unfortunately, all of the crowdsourced funds for DigiByte have been donated by the community for development of the project. Oh, so it must have been for development stuff. There we go. So I said, we weren't an ICO, we don't have pre-mined funds to spend on listings. And I said it would be terribly bad-mannered of us if we weren't honorable stewards of the funds the community has donated for development and instead used for exchange listing. So I said to him, can the trading fees not make up for this upfront cost? Surely if the trade volume of your exchange is, as I'm led to believe, then you would more than make up for the 0.5 BTC in a matter of days, if not hours. Long story short, so we got talking with these guys, and they're cool. They were like, you know what? Yeah, and we're going to extend your free listing. And so for that, I want to thank the Bitfinion guys, obviously, because they bent the rules a bit or whatever. And I hope I haven't gone and stood on any toes too much with this. But in the interest of a little bit of insight there, that's definitely the sort of thing that happens. Now, the funny thing is, I'm presuming this is also going to be the same for you. But at every exchange, it's a case of show us the money. It's never a case of, hey, guys, we would like to list your project. And every time somebody buys and sells, we're going to take our 0.02% fee or whatever, and we're going to give you a cut of it. Like, no one ever does that. No. They make a truckload of money, but no one ever does that.
And I wouldn't expect them to either. You know, that's their business. They are facilitating a service. They completely deserve whatever fees that people agree to give them in order to use their service. But I don't think that is our job as the developers of the project that's providing them a tool to earn revenue that they have to extort money from us. A lot of times we will get a Twitter DM or something like that, like, hey, we would love to list your token. Yeah, so that raises a red flag for me first. Like, well, we're not a token. And it's like, we have done, we love your token. We love your project. It looks like you had an amazing ICO. You can tell this is a copy and paste, that they really focus on ICOs. And, you know, a lot of times I respond back with, thank you for your interest in Vertcoin. We would love for you to list us. In fact, we will not charge you to list our project on your exchange. You're more than free to do it. Here's a link to our GitHub in order to download our wallet so you can facilitate your exchange. And that is the normal response that I send to them, which is normally followed up with we would love this much money in order to list your exchange. Obviously, they didn't read what I sent them, and I just say, sorry, we can't do that. We won't charge you to list us. And it's a play on the fact that, I mean, we got in a lot of trouble last year, about last year to the year before that, where, you know, Binance wanted an obscene amount of money to list us. And CZ got pissed off because we told our community. We were like, look, this is what they want. And they got pissed off about that because back then the run was happening, and, you know, they saw green everywhere, and they figured that everybody's doing all these ICOs, pumping millions of dollars, let me get a cut. And unfortunately, that, you know, I would much rather deal with a smaller exchange that does not require any funds from the project to list the coin, and an exchange that operates in an ethical manner. You know, one of the exchanges that you and I, you know, DigiByte and Vertcoin are on is Vertbase. And, you know, that exchange, in my opinion, is the example of the future with how to buy and sell cryptocurrencies, where they don't store anything. Granted, right now, Vertbase is only limited to, I think it's like 37 or so states inside of the United States, but they are looking to expand down to Australia, New Zealand, and eventually, hopefully, over to Europe. They're following the same path as Coinbase as far as the, you know, the timeline of them expanding. But the fact they don't store any of your coins, they send it directly to the wallet address that you specify, and whenever you go to buy, you agree to the price at that point, and then when you agree to that, it then deducts the money from your bank account, and then it sends the coins to the wallet address that you're worried. So the funds, your dollars are never on the exchange, your coins are never on the exchange. I'm hoping that's the future, and we get out of the way of these exchanges that want, you know, 4 or 5 BTC in order to list your project. And when, you know.
Yeah, so and I guess this is also props to the guys over at Vertbase, and we've also been contacted. I'm pretty sure it was, what's the other one? CoinZark?
CoinZark, yep.
They renamed recently, yeah.
Yeah, that was VertPig, and they renamed it Coin because they wanted to encompass a lot more coins and not just be Vertcoin specific. So that's why they had done the rebranding.
Right. Yeah. Did I say Coinbase? I meant Vertbase earlier.
No, you're good.
So the Vertbase guys, and like I've got them on chat. Like they're awesome. They're awesome people. We've had some great laughs for sure. Now, when they contacted us, they basically got in touch and they said, you know, here we are. We're Vertbase. We want to list you, and we're not going to charge you a fee or anything. And when that sort of thing happens, immediately we're like, you understand, right? Like you get it. And obviously through more communication and things, they're fantastic, and we've got to know even more that these guys understand. Presumably, I suppose coming from a Vertcoin background, also very similar to ours, and yeah, so they're fantastic, and I would highly recommend if people are interested in purchasing with US dollar, you look up something like Vertbase, because like you say, so it's non-custodial. So there's never, the funds are basically sitting there in their exchange. Now, the downside is obviously there's not the buy and the sell back and forth immediately, and with all of the pretty little graphs and things like that, like you would have on, say, Bittrex, for example.
But you're looking at this is a currency to currency exchange. You're exchanging, it's no different than if you go to, you know, if you travel to the Caribbean or to Europe or something like that and you need to exchange to the local currency. That's the exact same way it is. It's not a stock market. It is a currency exchange.
Yeah, and so I suppose the importance there is that it is not that you're trading stocks, but more that you are trading, instead, like you say, the currency aspect of it. It is a once-off transaction. It's not a whole lot of back and forth. There's not the bidding. It's basically this is the going rate. Take it or leave it. Like, do you want it or do you not? You can come back later on and hope for the best, but you know, and I think that's really cool, because also, so like you mentioned, it would then go to someone's, it then goes directly to your own DigiByte or Vertbase wallet directly. It doesn't sit on their exchange. So if the worst should happen and somebody got root access to their servers and they were hacked somehow, or there was some kind of like an inside job, I doubt it, but I'm like, let's play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
The most, if people were to get that kind of access to Vertbase, they wouldn't get anything. There's nothing there for them to get. Worst case scenario, they might get access to Vertbase's own bank accounts and be able to take out a little bit of funds like that. But even that is still a stretch. So your funds, basically, your stuff is safe. And so as a consumer, that's a really good value proposition. Now, like you say, obviously, it's not like a stock market where you're buying and selling and the charts are going up and down and up and down. And
but nothing stops you from sending that to a wallet address that's on, you know, an exchange like, you know, BitMEX, Coinbase, you know, Binance, anything.
Yeah, exactly.
You can buy it and send it directly over there, and then you can start playing that game of buying, you know, buying high and selling low and all that fun stuff. You know, but
that's how I play it: buy high and sell low, because I'm terrible. I've completely given up any kind of day trading. I haven't touched it in like over 12 months because I'm just that bad and it doesn't end well. But I think it's time.
That's my biggest thing is the, you know, those markets are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and unfortunately I'm I'm so busy with all of, my jobs, and then, with doing stuff with Vertcoin, it takes a lot of time to sit there and watch the, and Fibonacci retracement and all the other stuff. And yeah, if it goes up,
props
great.
to the likes of Nick and the Todd father who can do that. I certainly can't.
Yeah.
But I wanted to basically go back to, there was a question here from Steven. Could the Cryptopia issue have been avoided if it was a more decentralized exchange? So I want to kind of play devil's advocate again here, and say yes, it could. And at the same time, you then introduce additional sets of risks. So what happens when let's say you've got a decentralized exchange and you download their particular software onto your computer. Let's say you've got your, in fact, let's use this. We'll use Vertcoin and DigiByte as a perfect example. So you want to sell some DigiByte and you want to buy Vertcoin with this decentralized exchange. Now, the way that that's going to work is you're going to have this software on your computer because it's got to access your own local wallet. The idea being that your keys, your funds, your keys are never transmitted anywhere else. Now, the downside of this, though, is that you are then giving permission through one form or another, access to this other wallet to your private keys.
Yep.
You're then trusting this particular piece of software not to take all of your funds and send them off somewhere else maliciously.
Then I guarantee you that software is not going to be open source either. So no one can audit.
Some of it is actually. I think so. Like Blocknet is.
Okay.
And so that's.
I was thinking Binance. Binance is touting their new decentralized exchange. I'm like, I do not see Binance going open source.
No, but so let's say hypothetically they did open source it. Hypothetically, the new Binance decentralized exchange is completely open source. You download it, you save it on your computer, you run it. At that time, if there is any malicious software that has been added in, any malicious routines in the software at all, you've basically given complete access to your keys. Now, if you're clever and you've got a core wallet for either Vertcoin or DigiByte, you've gone and SSL encrypted it. Basically, I think you click on File and then encrypt your wallet.
Yep.
That means that you've still got to enter in your password to decrypt it. Mm-hmm. The software could still have a keylogger on there. Again, hypothetically, I'm still presuming like a worst case scenario that keeps track of your keystrokes. And in addition, there's a difference between having it compiled for you, you download it from the website, you run it, versus the what's on GitHub where people can review the source code. Mm-hmm. So during the building of the software, and I'm aware this is potentially going over the heads of a few people.
Well, it's good. It's good. I don't think people really understand decentralized, exchanges. So this is good.
So let's say hypothetically they take the software. Let's take Binance for example. They take the software off GitHub, and some engineer there basically builds the software and then puts up the little exe that you double click on Windows or Mac OS, whatever. Now, at any point in time, that dude could actually add in, basically copy and paste in a couple of extra lines of code that says, on the 21st of January 2020, next year, if you're running this, take all your funds and private keys and basically send off the private keys to us through this secure channel, and then we can take the private keys and match up which coin they're for and just filter them off at our leisure. Mm-hmm. Would you know about that as an end user? I promise you would not.
The overwhelming majority, no. Because even open source projects such as ours, the majority of people using it have never looked at the code. They are entrusting the people who are interested in that to verify for them.
So don't get me wrong. I'm not here to basically shit on the idea of a decentralized exchange. But the question that was it, Stephen? Let me quickly skim up here. I think it was Stephen. Yeah. Could this Cryptopia issue have been avoided? Potentially. But decentralized exchanges have also got different issues at the same time, so they're not completely infallible. It's an interesting one. At the same time, I've also done atomic swaps and things like I mentioned on Blocknet. I did that 18 months ago at the time with DigiByte and Vertcoin. DigiByte and Litecoin, I think, actually. That was, again, though, it's the software that I downloaded on my PC. I trusted that somebody else that had built it hadn't gone and put anything malicious on it. Now, I originally, at that time, kept most of my funds on that one computer. Had there been anything malicious, those funds could have been all extracted and taken and sent off elsewhere. Not good. So the idea being that basically if you are going to be doing this kind of buying and selling on a decentralized exchange, don't keep all your eggs in the one basket. Keep them on either a separate computer inside of some kind of, do your trading in a virtual machine or something else like that. There's a bunch of different options. So
yeah, one of the things I want to touch on, we had a question come in on my stream regarding VertPig, which is now CoinZark. So he was, all this talk of inside jobs was VertPig an inside job. So for people who don't know, VertPig, whenever they were running their exchange, they actually had a problem and they lost all of their funds as well. And Adam, who runs VertPig, he actually put out a full-on presser on our Reddit and through all of his channels and everything, acknowledging this, that it was with the authorities. And us, you know, that's something that we've always touted, is even with VertPig, which is now CoinZark, those projects were community projects, so community members of ours, but we did not do them. Now, one of the downsides is with VertPig is that, you know, one of our developers was the majority liquidator for that exchange, providing the majority of the liquidity. So he was the biggest loss in all of that. And VertPig, they are going to be so they're doing the coin swaps. They have now set it up to where you can buy all of those coins with the euro and soon the British pound. All of the fees that he has collected from that are going back to paying people who lost funds during that issue that he had with his server. What the issue was an inside job? I have no idea. None of the police report ever came out regarding that. But I do know, unlike every other exchange that this has ever happened to, he dedicated everything of putting all the effort back in to paying back everybody who lost everything. Because at the end of the day, honestly, if I think it was an inside job and it was malicious, he wouldn't have done that. You know, it would have been,
you know, disappear and go sit on an island sipping cocktails, right?
Exactly. When it happened, he came into our Discord and was freaking out because he was like, I've fucked up. I've got a horrible you know, and then he told us that the police were looking into it and yada, yada, yada. But then, you know, immediately, I think it was like 24 or 48 hours later, when he came back, because he was like, I can't say anything at the moment, he came back and told us, he's like, look, I'm doing everything in my power in order to restore funds to everybody who lost stuff. So, you know, just answering Joe, who's in our chat, look, to my knowledge, it was not an inside job. I don't know what happened there. I know Adam did take responsibility for the mess-up. What that mess-up was, I'm not sure, but I know he's also taken responsibility to pay back everyone who has lost coins on that exchange, and he's doing that with the fees that he's currently earning from CoinZark. So he had to get that back up and running, and he's expanded that in order to facilitate the payment the payment back to everybody who lost stuff as soon as possible. Right. And he focuses on, you know, like Shapeshift is kind of his main competitor, who went to all a KYC you know, accounts based system, where his system does not require KYC at all, because you're just swapping coins. So that's one of the benefits to his system. But that is that's the information that I know of so far with regards to that. Hopefully,
it's an interesting one, the KYC side, right? Like, so on the one hand, I'm totally against it. On the other hand, I'm completely for it. There's like benefits and pros and cons, and I'm like, oh, it's...
Well, this is the thing. I think, and this is kind of my opinion when it comes to large transactions and exchanges, because right now, you know, the confirmation time for a lot of the smaller coins that require that don't have much hash power and are at risk of the 51% attacks, they're pretty high. So it'd take you 12, 16, 24 hours maybe for an exchange to accept. If you send 5 Vertcoin over to an exchange, it could take 12 to 15 hours to get there, because they require so many confirmations to avoid a 51% attack. We have suggested to exchanges that you need to make that a variable. If somebody's sending you 5 Vertcoin, you don't need to wait 300 confirmations to confirm that. But if somebody's sending you 50,000 Vertcoin, okay, it's probably warranted to wait a good little while. And we see that also, I mean, we see that reflecting in banking. So if you're sending a large amount of funds, obviously there's more security checks there. I think I'm okay with know your customer when you're dealing with super large amounts of currency. especially when it comes to the onloading and offloading of to real world government-backed fiat. Because at the end of the day, the people who are providing that service, they got to cover their ass too. And the last thing that they want to do is be, an enabler to some sort of theft or something like that. But I understand that the full anonymous acting, way of cryptocurrency, and kind of that's how, it was meant to be. That's why we had stealth addresses and stuff of that nature. It's a double-edged sword. I don't ever want to encourage illegal behavior if that's your motive behind getting around KYC. But I also want people to be able, I want exchanges to be able to trust the people that are using their service. I don't know where you balance that.
There's really no easy answer, right? So that's what I'm kind of then wondering. What's the magic number, right? Like for you saying where there are larger amounts, to have that KYC versus smaller amounts, because that's basically, I suppose, in this instance, if my understanding of what's happened with Binance and those Utopia funds is that they basically deposited enough that was under that amount for KYC. I mean, that's definitely not something that I myself have the answer for, but I too have I've been in talks with probably maybe 12.5 exchanges in the last 2 months, in terms of what they would like or what they think we should set the confirmations to. And like you kind of mentioned, having a sliding scale is actually a really good idea.
I mean, because if you're trying to protect versus double spends, nobody's going to pay the money. And this is the thing, any proof of work coin is susceptible to double spends. You just need to have the hash power available. As long as they can do rent attacks, because obviously if you have to physically have the hardware, it's much more cumbersome as opposed to being able to go rent it from a place like NiceHash. But nobody's going to do a double spend for 10 Vertcoin. Nobody's going to do a double spend for 100 DigiByte. It's not economically worth it. They're only going to do that for massive amounts of these coins in order to make it worth it at the end of the day, because they have to also offset the renting of all that hash power. So a variable when it comes to large deposits and withdrawals, if I'm withdrawing 50,000 Vertcoin from an exchange, I'm cool waiting 24 hours. Unless if I'm buying a house with it because it's worth, or buying a car with it because it's worth that much, obviously that's something I've planned out. It's not an impulse buy. So I'm cool with waiting 24 hours. And I think it's entirely reasonable,
Well, the interesting thing is, so with withdrawals, that's when I don't think it should matter. Because if you're going to withdraw the money to your own wallet, and then you're going to double spend and reverse the chain, funds are going to end back up in the exchange's wallet. So I'm kind of like, I don't understand why exchanges make you wait to withdraw it. That seems totally ass backwards.
But then you could withdraw twice. That's why I would do it on the withdrawal and the deposit.
No, because when they do it, you don't. At least for the exchange that I've been talking with, you don't interface directly with the blockchain. It's their database that they've got, which tells them you have this much funds. That's the part that doesn't get rolled back. And so, as far as they're concerned, basically they'll have the money back in their wallet, and they're going to be like, yes, we're rich. But certainly for deposits are where the issue is the biggest, I suppose. A sliding scale is definitely a good idea. Charlie at least said something the other day, which I actually agreed with. He and I don't agree on a lot of things these days. But he said something that I did agree with, and that was that if your currency can't be 51%, it's centralized.
With hash power, definitely. It doesn't even have to be centralized technologically. Hash power it is. Because, I mean, that's why, the big thing is Litecoin can't be 51% attacked, Bitmain or BTC can't be, but that's because Bitmain has decided not to do it. As soon as Bitmain decides to do it, and they could either, Antbleed or whatever, backdoor into all of those ASICs that they've sold people. Exactly. As soon as they push that, or they point their pools, because remember, Bitmain and DigiByte and they control the majority of the hash power through the mining pools. All they got to do is change.
That with the BCH fork, they took the Bitcoin hash power and they're like, you're now going to mine the BCH ABC chain or whatever BAB chain and like, so this is literally like worst case scenario stuff that people are like. It's never gonna happen. It happened.
We talked about that in March. I think it was March of last year when we did a big expose on Bitmain and kind of our huge, this is why we don't like ASICs. And we talked about the majority of the hash power for BTC was at, I think it was at 49.6% back in March, was controlled by Bitmain through the BTC.com pool and the Ant pool. They controlled, if you combined everything, they controlled almost 50% of the hash rate, and that's obviously gone up since then. So at that point, you are trusting one, maybe three individuals that if they wanted to, they could send an email to each other and say, hey, let's do this. And they can completely attack the entire network. So by saying it's not 51% attackable because the crypto51.app website says it's not, that means you can't rent NiceHash in order to do it. But it is completely susceptible to that. All you need is a few individuals to say, let's toy with the network. We have all the hash power. Let's toy with it.
All it takes, like so what we have with Bitcoin Cash is two, maybe not billionaires, but 2 millionaires in a pissing contest.
Yeah.
Trying to decide who's the bigger man or who's the better person or whatever. Now, so this is literally 2 millionaires playing around with the hash power. Imagine this time, though, that they don't want to be combative with each other, but they want to milk the system. Mm-hmm. Because they've both got a lot of those particular funds.
Yeah.
What would happen if they are both like, hey, let's work together? This guy goes, yeah, okay, let's work together for, how long is it going to take, like an hour? People aren't going to notice if their mining rewards don't give them anything for an hour on Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. I mean, they might. That's 6 blocks. Maybe your your mining pool just was a little bit unlucky.
Yeah.
So let's say they work together and you take 3 pools or 2 pools, whatever, and all of a sudden, like, they're double spending. Mining profitability is down. What a perfect time to exit scam, right? Like, we're literally talking worst case scenario. This shit happens.
And what can you do about it? There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. You can't go to the Bitcoin devs and be like, hey, stop this. That's not how this works. That the whole point of the system is that...
What are they going to do? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, the whole point is the developers don't have on-off switches. They don't have the ability to... And that's why the advocating for the decentralization of mining is so paramount. And one thing that worries me about this, not to go off on a Bitmain tangent, but you've heard about them laying off people. The 2 founders are stepping back and alleviating themselves from legal responsibility from Bitmain. Could you imagine if Bitmain were to go bankrupt and the Chinese government came into Bitmain and absorbed the company into the communist government over there, and now they have a country, because the whole point of crypto is that you have a currency that is not backed by a government. Now you have the majority of hashing power for the original cryptocurrency controlled by a government. Imagine the hellstorm that comes from that, but nobody wants to think about that as an option, but it's highly possible that if Bitmain folds shop, or if they run out of money, because initially they're going to do an IPO and start to get a bunch of investors, and that's fallen through. They've closed up shop in a bunch of places, they've laid off a bunch of people, and now the founders, the leaders of the organization, are taking a step back to absolve them from any legal responsibilities. That is a dumpster fire that's waiting to have somebody come up and be like, yeah, I want to buy this, and now I have complete control, or the government there saying...
The government keeps it themselves. Imagine if we hadn't found the ad bleed, right? All of a sudden, literally, like, this is how freaking close we are to everybody's worst freaking fears happening. The Chinese government, like you say, comes in and takes over Bitmain through whatever reason. This is not that far-fetched. It's plausible. Yes, it's improbable, but it's plausible. We've seen millionaires playing around with hash power. This is well within the realms of possibilities. So, Chinese government comes in. Hey, Bitmain, we're taking over all your stuff. By the way, this was 12 months ago. Nobody discovered the ant bleed vulnerability. All your hash power is now belonging to us. Thank you very much. Like, what are you going to do about it? You can't go to the Chinese government and go, hey, guys, that's not cool, man. Don't do that.
Yeah. And so Anon420 in my chat said, what if they're already working with the government, not to be a conspiracy nut? And it's not.
We don't know.
It's the thing. You don't know because, one, all of their stuff is not open source, so you can't verify. Exactly. And you don't know, and especially in China, I don't want to pick on China, but there's a reason why they have their own social media, they have their own Google search engines, and there's a gigantic firewall around them. As from a information standpoint, is they control every outlet and inlet coming in and out of that country. That entirely could be happening now. That might be why you're seeing them take a step back. You don't know what sort of pressures are happening over there. A lot of the government and high-level business mingle with one another because they have to. Because the government over there can come and just take your business away from you. There's no, like here in the United States or in Australia or New Zealand, there's no capitalist, you own your labor, you own your business, and the government can't just come and seize it from you. It's a completely different ballgame.
At least you're Kim.com, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, that's...
But, okay, so this happened. The U.S. government basically came to the New Zealand government and said, hey, guys, we don't like this guy. He set up residence in New Zealand. We want to come and we want to raid his mansion, which is literally 15 minutes from my house.
He had a nice house. I ain't gonna lie. The houses and the cars
I've been
were
there
nice.
a couple times. It's a freaking nice house.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really nice. Dude, I went for a walk through his garage. The dude has like 8 garages lined up, one after another, filled with like gorgeous cars. He's extravagant in every way. And say what you will about him, like him or not, but, you know, he had a nice house and some nice cars. And what happened there shouldn't have happened. Mm-hmm. But that's the thing, is this is all well within the realm of possibilities here. And this is why decentralization is so important of the hash power as well. And this is why I'm not a big fan of big centralized mining pools and things like that. We've seen it in the past with ghash.io for Bitcoin having like 49% of the hash power or something. This was a wee while ago. People freaked out, la-di-la.
Yeah, but also a lot of people, the reason why mining pools centralize is because you increase the chances that that pool is going to gain the block.
You're going to find the next block. And so your rewards, if you've got like, let's say a few thousand people, are going to be more regular. And so people often come to me and they'll say, hey, what's the best mining pool for DigiByte? Please don't ask me that. It's a terrible question. Not many questions are terrible, but this is one of them. So
at least for us, we can say P2 pool. That's the best for us. Because it is a decentralized, no one controls it. It's, you know, there's no manager of the pool. So we always advocate as a project, if you're going to mine Vertcoin, please use P2 pool. But unfortunately, the majority of our hash rate was on now the name of the exchange. It's the one that NiceHash uses. So when NiceHash points all of its hashing power to our algorithm to mine our coin, it goes to this individual pool. Luckily, we know the owner of the pool and we have communications with him, so we know that he himself is not acting maliciously. But the majority of the big miners are there because they get more blocks more frequently.
Yeah, the regular rewards.
Yeah.
So I tell you what, give me 1 second, because I want to quickly let's keep going down this chain of thought.
Okay. I do have a question here while you're looking that up. So somebody said, would Bitcoin just fork if that happened? You can't. So this is the thing that comes with forks. You need a majority of the hash power to fork. And the majority of the nodes on the network to fork. This is something that we're dealing with our upcoming fork at the end of the month, is we had to make sure that we gave ourselves enough lead time so that the exchanges would adopt the fork, that the majority of the miners would be updated, because when you do that fork, what the way that works is that the wallets have to agree and the miners have to agree to do that fork. So if the Chinese government
otherwise you get the split.
And otherwise you get the split, yeah. So if the Chinese government, they assume the majority of hash power for Bitcoin, unfortunately, I can't go out and buy a whole bunch of GPUs and go mine Bitcoin. The only place I can go to compete with them is I have to buy from the company that they now own in order to compete from hash power. And so once again, there's nothing you can do about it. So even if the developers wanted to fork, they can't.
So this is I suppose a really good kind of change, like tunnel into the Vertcoin proposition here, and the Vertcoin value proposition for your mining algorithms and what you've been doing with removing ASICs. So on the one hand, ASICs are great for the security, provided that security is not being used to double spend on your chain. So the idea with being GPU bound is so that you don't have. I mean, it's a tough one because GPUs can obviously still be rented from NiceHash, and so this is obviously where I would further advocate for DigiByte with our multi-algo. But do you want to talk specifically a little bit about this whole fork. Now we say fork not in this sense, not as we're splitting and there's a fork in the road and some are going this way and we're all getting free coins.
Correct, yeah. So it's not a contentious fork, which is that's normally what you'll see whenever you get a Vertcoin and then a Vertcoin Classic or an Ethereum Classic. Everybody in our community, at least, is aware when they come to the community, they find out really quick what we're about as far as no ASICs. We want as decentralized as possible. There's no pre-mine. There's no, all of that is made abundantly clear. And there's a social contract between the developers and the community and the reason this is because we've done this before. This is the third time that our project has forked because of ASICs or a botnet because of CPU mining. In the past, we have forked because of that. So this, this is really quick. People, we had VertHash, which is our next algorithm. We had talked about the R&D of that back in the summer. And then when ASICs became available, we realized that we needed to do something quickly because mining is no longer profitable, and now you have the majority of your hash power is being owned by people who have ASICs, and we don't want them on our network. We want the average Joe, the average gamer who has a graphics card in their computer to be able to mine and earn a little bit of currency whenever they're not using their computer, and then to be able to spend that on any of the merchants that support and accept Vertcoin for payment and services. But our fork it's not a contentious one. The community completely agrees. The majority of the exchange, there's only one exchange that is refusing to accept the fork, and that's Yobit, because they want money in order to upgrade their stuff. But all of the exchanges are like, yeah, let's go. We're down for it. All of the mining, the miners outside of the one-click miner, all of the miners are done. They're ready to go for the fork. So as soon as that block happens at the beginning of next month, then everything will switch over to the new algorithm, and we're not creating airdrops. We're not creating new coins. All it is a simple algorithm change. And what that does is it completely stops the ASICs that are currently available for Lyra2REv3 now there's other projects that have that algorithm, so they can just go mine Monocoin or any of the other projects that have used our algorithm, but they will not be able to do the new algorithm. And same goes for NiceHash. NiceHash, they don't have our algorithm right now. So it's going to take them time in order to incorporate that into their software. And as soon as they have that incorporated, if VertHash is ready to go, we will fork again. And with VertHash, and this is the reason why VertHash is taking a little bit longer, is because NiceHash will not be able to operate with VertHash. That is the goal of VertHash, is so that rentable hash power sharing and things of that nature from a rentable standpoint will no longer be usable on our blockchain. So we're doing a few things. So the developer, and a lot of this stuff is over my head from a development standpoint, but I think the general premise behind it is that you're going to need the local blockchain on the machine that you are mining, either a small instance of it or the full blockchain on the local machine that you're mining. And with NiceHash, that's not you're renting the hash power. You don't have the blockchain on your machine. NiceHash doesn't have it on their machine. So I think that's the idea that we're using, but please do not quote me on that. It's still in R&D. One of the cool things is that we did just have, I think we just got it compiled, squared away to where we can start testing it on the testnet. So there is progress being made, but the way that they're using the blockchain, the wallet that's associated with that, and the mining, and all of the other memory, highly IO intensive and all this other stuff, all of the changes that they're making is to disincentivize anyone from investing any R&D money into making an ASIC. Because remember, it takes time and about $1 million worth of R&D in order to create a hardware ASIC for an algorithm.
Yeah, and then some. Yeah. It's not cheap.
Yeah, so we're decentivizing people from doing that, but we're also eliminating the rent to attack issue that comes from NiceHash.
Nice. So because it's not just the removal of ASICs, but it's also the removal of the renting, which is also going to be quite key for Vertcoin, I suppose, in the long time. Now, this is the part where I want to get a little bit into the nitty gritty here.
Okay.
And this is probably the part where Kat, who's been in the chat, can tune out a little bit because she knows how much I love Litecoin. And this is where I want to ask about because I've already got this made up in my mind, and I know that there is a good value proposition for Vertcoin over and above Litecoin, very much so for DigiByte also as well. But I want to ask your thoughts and hear what you would say specifically about why would somebody want to develop for Vertcoin or build on Vertcoin over something like, let's say, Litecoin, for example, or maybe even Bitcoin?
As far as develop on, so one of the things I would say, I don't know,
or what makes you bitter, I guess. Do you want to?
So what makes us better?
Yeah.
We are about as close to the original vision of cryptocurrency in general as you can get, where anybody can contribute to consensus. When you think about mining, it is consensus. You're providing consensus on the parameters, the number of circulatable tokens, all of that, coins and everything. All of that is being agreed upon by everybody who's contributing to the mining. The goal is that we're open source, so we want everybody to be able to read our stuff. We don't want we want to stay as true to the original vision. We want, and the big separator between us and Litecoin is you can't mine Litecoin. You can only buy Litecoin. You can spend $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 and get an ASIC and then point it to a pool that you have to trust the person that you'll get a payout. But you, as an average individual, can't run to a local hardware store or a local Best Buy or a CompUSA, pick up and build a computer and start contributing to the consensus of the project. That is our big selling point, and also the fact that we're all volunteers, so anybody can come develop with us. We're also, one of the things that we're going to be implementing here soon is the Vertcoin Foundation, which, if you're in the United States at least, you can donate to it, and it's a tax write-off. So it's going to be a 501c3, and if anybody knows anything about those, is that you really have to be on the up and up from a legal standpoint because you're dealing with the IRS. And so with all of that transparency and the social contract that we have with the community, we're hoping that people can trust the Vertcoin network in order to build on that to be the usage, the use case for point of sale solutions. We're also trying to build some of that on top of the Lit Lightning Network, a point of sale solution that allows you to be able to accept any SegWit enabled coin for payment and not have to worry about waiting for the block time and stuff of that nature.
Right, so that's the difference, I think, between Lit versus LND. Am I correct? I don't know too much about it. I'm not so much a big fan myself.
Yeah, so LND is a single coin base. So LND has it for Bitcoin. So if you've seen any of the Bitcoin Lightning Network, that is LND. That is a company. It is an actual company that has been invested in by people like Square. So that Jack, who owns Twitter and Square, he's an investor. Charlie Lee is an investor. They just did a round of investing about 6 months ago. I think they got about $15 million or maybe $11 million or something like that of investing. It is a single coin, so you can only do Lightning Network exchanges from Bitcoin to Bitcoin. There's no multi-swap or swap. So with Lit, that is the MIT project that's all open source, and the goal of it is that also something else with LND, because they have investors. They don't talk about this, but they're looking at ways to monetize the Lightning Network as well. So between fees and things of that nature, where that is the exact opposite of what Lit, the MIT DCI protocol is one, it's multi-coin, so any SegWit-enabled coin, but they're also, we don't want to monetize the network itself. Think if people monetized HTTP. Right. And the limitations that would put on the internet. The goal of it is that you develop the protocol in order to enable projects, services, and things of that nature to be built on top of it. So the big selling point with Lit is, if you have Litecoin, if you have any SegWit-enabled coin, you can pay somebody with Litecoin, or if you go into a shop and they only accept Vertcoin or Bitcoin, you can automatically swap that on the Lit network. Now, one of the downsides to the Lit is we are heavily focused in on it because two of our developers are employed at the MIT DCI. Our lead developer is a student at MIT. So they are heavily involved in the development of Lit. But Lit is starting to come to a close as far as its development from the MIT DCI, and it's going to have to be picked up in order to expand the vision of it, of where it currently is, into the solution that we've been talking about. And I know Vertcoin is looking to take that up. The downside of that is that you need developers, and all of our developers are volunteers, so unfortunately we don't get to move stuff as fast as if we had full-time employees. That is one of the downsides to not having an ICO, is you don't have a bunch of money sitting around to employ people to work on your project. So we always advocate anybody who is interested in the project, wants to contribute, wants to learn about blockchain technology in general, please come and you know, if you just want to ask questions, our developers are more than happy to talk to you. And if you want to get in and get involved, by all means. You know, I think it's really hard to answer the question, what makes us better, outside of, I would say, our philosophy. And I talk about it a lot, as far as we don't believe that anybody should have an advantage over another person when it comes to mining. If you have an ASIC and it costs 1,000, say it's 100 times more expensive for that ASIC, but it delivers 100,000 times more hash power, that is not a fair compromise. You know, you're not able to fairly compete with the person who buys a GPU. If they spend $300 and it mines at 100 mega hash, the person who spends $3,000 on an ASIC, it should only be able to mine at 10 times the amount. That's kind of, if you wanted to segue into FPGAs, that is our philosophy when it comes to FPGAs as well, is because FPGAs, they can pump out major hash power, but they don't cost as much as if you were to equivalent that with the same amount of graphics cards that's required to meet the same amount of hash power.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess I can probably also, like, so you mentioned your philosophy, and so this is where I'd also like to chime in myself about what I would personally say the value proposition is for Vertcoin, but then I would also be likewise curious to hear what you would say yourself about DigiByte. So my understanding back in 2014 is that Vertcoin was founded originally to be a distributed blockchain that was mined on your PC by the average person from home. Yep. That it was, like you say, it was fairly launched without all of the ICO nonsense that we have these days. But the idea being that anybody who wanted to, who had a relatively modern computer, could participate in securing the network and receiving those mining rewards.
Yes. Now,
in addition to that being your original goal, we've seen that remain in action. And so this is where I would say that, and in my mind, the value proposition for Vertcoin is over and above the likes of Litecoin. Now, in fact, I've actually gone and dug something up that I thought was quite interesting. Now, I can probably even just send you this if you give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Now, this is, how do I send this?
You just shoot it over to me in a DM on Twitter, maybe? Or
yeah, that's easier. I'll send you that. So this is what originally back in the day. Now, the problem is a lot of people weren't around back then, back when Litecoin first started. So I'm going to bring this up on screen. Now, this is really interesting. This was last year, and I'm going to cop a lot of flack for this, but let's have some fun.
Okay.
Sorry, this was August 4th in 2017. Charlie Lee, for the first time since launch, Litecoin is on the same major release as Bitcoin. Try it out and let me know. This was the 0.14 release. And then someone asked, and they said, what's the importance of this? And they basically say it means we're up to date with the newest features of Bitcoin. So the problem was they were launched originally all the way back in 2000 and what was it? It was, 9 years ago? 8 years ago.
8 years ago, yeah.
The idea behind them, so not a lot of people know this, but the Scrypt algorithm was originally supposed to be CPU bound, and I don't even believe it was going to be GPU mineable.
Correct.
Not a lot of people know that.
ASICs were already developed for Bitcoin, so the point of Litecoin was it was supposed to be mineable on the average computer. It's basically what Vertcoin is today. And you can't mine Litecoin anymore because it's all ASICs.
You beat me to the punchline.
Yeah, sorry about that, yeah.
But that's exactly it, right? So, back when they started, so they've had 8 years now, and even according to Charlie Lee himself, their development has been behind. They've lagged. They have not come up with anything exciting or anything new. They were even behind DigiByte by like a month or two when it came to implementing SegWit. So there's not even this, I've seen the narrative myself to use Litecoin as a test bed, not as, like, Bitcoin itself has a freaking test net.
Yeah. Well, so we update directly from Bitcoin now. So we're directly upstream from Bitcoin. Initially, when we forked, we were upstream with Litecoin, and we switched over to Bitcoin. So we're not even worried about any updates that Litecoin's doing. Not that they're really doing much. I'd much rather be on the security updates from the Bitcoin core team. But yeah, that was the original point of Litecoin, was to fork from Bitcoin because Bitcoin was no longer mineable by the average Joe. It was all institutionalized, large-scale operations that were securing the network for Bitcoin.
Exactly.
And that's now the point with Litecoin.
Yeah, and so now I think in my eyes, if you were to have a slightly faster Bitcoin that was going to be mineable by anybody, and you're going to use that as your central point of focus right from the get-go, and not change that kind of MO about, what was it, like 36 months into existence when ASIC came along, and you're like, not my problem anymore.
Yeah, their white paper said that they were ASIC resistant.
I think this is where Vertcoin, myself at least, I would say this is where Vertcoin comes into it, because you started in 2014, you said this is how we want to roll, and you've made a conscientious decision every step of the way to uphold that.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, you have proven, the development team and the people involved in the community have all 100% proven that this is something that you're on board with, that you believe in, and you've taken the steps in order to uphold that original, I don't want to say vision because then people think of Satoshi's Vision BTC and ABC, but you've upheld that original ethos and that goal. Philosophy, there we go. That's an even better way of describing it. So it's not like you kind of released it out into the world and you're like, bye, see you later, and that was it. The development has been maintained, and if memory serves me right, you've actually been pretty efficient when it comes to keeping up with the Vertcoin, not the Vertcoin core, the Bitcoin core protocol updates.
Yep.
Now, yeah, I mean, I guess like as far as I'm concerned, people will look at Litecoin and they will look at Vertcoin, obviously, because you got the same max supply, the same block timing. Do you use, I think you've got a different difficulty adjustment algorithm?
So we do use deep gravity well. So it's Komodo gravity well. It's every block the difficulty adjusts. And this is kind of the thing with the history of Litecoin, Vertcoin and stuff, is Litecoin really rose to prominence because Charlie Lee got a job at Coinbase. And then they got added on to Coinbase, and they were the lowest. They were the lowest costing coin on Coinbase. So whenever anybody who was an average Joe just getting into cryptocurrency, their cousin told them about it at Thanksgiving in 2017, said, "Hey, go to Coinbase and start buying stuff." Obviously, people from a psychological standpoint, when they see that you can devise these coins by 8 digits, they would rather buy a whole coin than 0.0003 Bitcoin for the same price. So that was the big run up when it comes to Litecoin. But outside of advertising at the UFC, they haven't done much as of late. And I don't want to knock the contributions that have been made to the crypto space in general.
They did the LitePay and they did the LitePal, and look at how freaking great that went.
Well, wasn't the LitePay a third party vendor that they partnered with?
Yeah, they all were. But they gave them a shit ton of money.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I don't know, they have a foundation as well, the Litecoin Foundation. I don't know the ins and outs of that. I know at least with ours, all of our books, as far as donations and expenditures, will all be available for anybody to view. That's one of the requirements of being a 501c3 here in the United States. But I know their foundation is in Singapore, and I don't know if they have to do that. Our goal is to be as open, transparent, and we want to serve as the avenue for being able to make payments for services and goods, and do it through blockchain and not have to rely on your bank. That's why one of the slogans that we had was "Be your own bank." Unfortunately, Blockcoin.com or Blocknet, I think one of them have actually trademarked that slogan, so we can't use that anymore.
Oh, no.
They did that back in like 2014, I believe. So after we had thought that up, we were like, can't use that. But yeah, I mean, that's the value proposition when it comes to Vertcoin versus Litecoin. I think is fairly obvious. It has the original tendencies of Litecoin, but Litecoin fell away from their original philosophy of their white paper. Vertcoin has stuck to it to a T, even through the ridicule, the absolute we're a shit coin and all this other stuff, the absolute hate that comes with that, we've stuck into our guns because we believe it's the fairest and it's the best way for everybody to be able to participate in the consensus of the blockchain.
Yeah. And I guess, and so in that kind of respect, that's obviously where we are now, from the DigiByte field, also moving back to, we're looking to, first of all, with Odocrypt and FPGA mining.
Yeah, so explain Odocrypt, because that's the new algorithm that you guys are working on, right? Yeah,
so this is committed to our GitHub by one of the team. He's also one of the minds who helped work on DigiHealed. And the idea being that every 10 days, it basically comes along and rewrites itself and it changes itself up. The way that it does that is... Well, I tell you what, it's probably worth me, rather than going into that, I'll basically say that hypothetically, you could develop an ASIC. But after 10 days, it goes and rewrites itself. And so after 10 days, you're only going to be running at about, let's say, like 4 or 5% efficiency. As a result of that, you then have to go in and completely reprogram it. Why would you go and do that? Like, it's an ASIC that's going to require reprogramming. So basically, you're going to be better off with an FPGA or with GPU mining, because ASICs are not easy to reprogram. That's the whole idea of them, is that they're application-specific integrated circuits. You program it up, it does one thing really freaking well, and that's all that it does. It doesn't handle change.
Yep.
And so if you're going to go, so I think it basically uses the Ketchak algorithm, which we know that there are ASICs for, but because of the way that it does it, and it modifies and kind of, I suppose, builds on top of that, the parameters that go into it prevent an ASIC from being built for it. Well, they don't prevent an ASIC from being built for it. You can build one, but it's only going to be efficient for 10 days. And then after that, it's useless.
So nobody's going to invest the money and the time to do it.
Why would you bother?
Correct. You're decentivizing. That's, when people say, Vertcoin's ASIC proof. No algorithm is ASIC proof. The point that you need to decentivize people from building these types of things. So that's awesome that does that, because it's an auto fix.
So by changing itself every 10 days, we're also looking at the possibility of doing it more regularly, the possibility of doing it less frequently, the cost-benefit analysis. I wasn't really involved in that because the numbers went over my head, and I'm totally fine with admitting that. The numbers went over my head, but the people that did it basically came up with 10 days seems like a pretty reasonable amount of time, the best kind of way to add it up and things. So what we're working on ourselves is we've got to, I'm sure you've obviously been aware of how much fun this is trying to find somebody who can do the implementation with like a CUDA implementation.
Yes. There's not a lot of people out here that can do this stuff. I mean, you're very limited on the talent that's available to do this stuff. And quite honestly, if people can do this, they should charge for this. Their time and their expertise is worth something. It's the fact that we have volunteers doing this stuff at our project that aren't paid, that it's astonishing, and they do it because they believe in the philosophy, and I'm sure you guys run into that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean, you and I, for doing this kind of thing, we're not getting paid. I do it because I believe in the project, because I believe in DigiByte, what it stands for, the possibilities, and because the whole aspect of like cybersecurity and things really intrigues me. I'm just a curious kind of fella for the most part, when I'm not being sarcastic. I'm a curious kind of guy. So this is really like right up my alley, and I think it's got that broader appeal as well because of that. And I think one day as a result of that, especially like, so this is not going to be a Litecoin where we release it and we sit and we forget and we're done and we'll see you later. This is going to be a constant evolution, and the blockchain itself, much like Vertcoin, DigiByte is also going to consistently evolve and grow, not just in the user base, but also in the tech that powers it. So we were originally 1-minute block timings, that then got reduced down to 30 seconds and then down to 15 seconds with our DigiSpeed Hard Fork. So it's going to continue to grow and continue to evolve. And I think obviously, like for us, this is where our value proposition comes in, because we don't have coin in our name, for starters. And I think that's a important distinction to make, that it's not just about the transfer of wealth between two people, but also for DigiByte that we can be used for the security aspect. We've got the opcodes enabled to do things like launch tokens on top of us, and we can do things like notarizing documents. I've talked recently about securing things like wills and testaments. I've also talked about using digi assets, which we're coming out with real soon, to solve the whole thing of ticket scalping and stuff like that, which you wouldn't traditionally use a coin for to solve ticket scalping. Even though you potentially could, depending on the blockchain and the opcodes that they have enabled, a few other bits and pieces. So
I would say, I guess the DigiByte team are looking at a lot of different facets that can be solved using blockchain technology and the security surrounding that. Whereas with Vertcoin, we are focused purely on being a commodity. We want to be that currency that you can send to somebody overseas and not have to worry about a wire transfer fee of $15, $30 or what have you in order to do that. And you can use your computer when you're not playing video games to earn current instead of it just sitting there. You know, when you're not playing video games on it, the computer just sits there. If you have it on, it's just wasting power. You know, you can utilize that. And you guys have a lot of things with DigiID and, you know, a lot of things that you're tackling with that. I think it's awesome that you're looking at the broader scope. I know with us, we're definitely more focused on just being a commodity. What does the Odocrypt algorithm, does that play more into the coin aspect, or are you utilizing that for the other stuff as well?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say, so with Odocrypt, it's more about the security of the blockchain, but also about the distribution of it. So one of the things, actually, I tell you what, why don't I quickly, I'll see if I can bring this up on screen here. And if we go to, shit, what's the name of it? Hang on a minute. Let me get my head straight here. And if we go to the BTC, we go chains, let's go LTC, there we go. Can I get it to show me? I can't get it to show me. That's okay. Yeah, this will work. 1, 2, 3. Cool. So I will start with this. You're not going to be able to see this, obviously, so you're just going to have to take my word for it. But actually, what I can do for you probably is copy this and just kind of DM it to you, just so you can kind of see what I'm seeing.
Got it there.
And then, so.
All right, I got it up on my screen as well.
This is the mining distribution for Bitcoin. Now, this is where Odocrypt is going to play into it, because like we were talking about before, if you have 3 millionaires, 4 millionaires that are all going to basically take their money and play with it, maybe they get into a pissing contest one day about their egos. Maybe they want to work together instead and like double spend on the Bitcoin network. This is basically like, this is one of the weaker points of this. Now, I'm not doing this specifically just to shit all over Bitcoin, but I'm doing this so that our viewers are basically aware, like, no blockchain out there is perfect. Not even DigiByte. I'm sorry, people. We're pretty damn close.
Well, most people don't know this. And especially with Bitcoin, no one, you know a few of the developers, but they're very decentralized. They don't have centralized, you know, this is where we're sending news. You have like Roger Ver and some of these people that claim, you know, like Craig Wright, to be Satoshi and to speak for it and stuff like that. But unless people dig into this stuff, they don't know. And I think what you're doing here is definitely a big service that people need to understand this stuff.
Yeah. So if we take a look, because this is obviously the idea being like, we're going to look at the pain points. And the interesting thing is that when I was talking with the Ripple people, this is something that came up, was their concern for centralization. Now, the irony of that is not lost on me. Don't get me wrong, but that was their concern, was the proof of work mining centralization. So if we have a look here, chains.cryptoid.info/BTC, and then you can bring up the mining pool extraction here by clicking on this tab. You can see that each of these different mining pools, how much of the last 100 blocks they've basically got, excuse me, the last 100 blocks they've got, and same for the last 1,000. So They're kind of close. That's within 1%. I mean, this one here, the red one, is like 4% more lucky at the moment. If we then go and have a bit of a look at Litecoin, again, similar sort of situation. And if you have, let's say we even get the top, who's Discus Fish?
I don't know.
What a cool name, though. Discuss Fish. Anyway, we've got Ant Pool, so someone's gone through and actually labeled these. You can do the same thing with Bitcoin as well. You can kind of match them up for the different mining pools, BTC.com and things like that, Lyra2REv3. But then, so if you come along and you have a look, third of all, at the DigiByte one, and you look at our distribution over here, the distribution itself, predominantly from being multi-algo, is very different. It's not perfect. It could be better still. And so this is where I don't want to specifically just be shitting on these other two blockchains here, but I want to also say that this is why we're looking to improve upon it. It's not just that we're good when we could be greater or better. Sorry, it's getting late in the day and it's been a long Sunday. Talking is hard. But you can look at the share of the last 1,000 blocks here. So this one's got 15%, 7.5%, 6%. And so if you were to start adding those up, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to need at least seven different mining pools to all collaborate to even begin to attempt to double spend. Now, what we don't know, in addition to this, I think that some of these are the same algorithm. So that's not actually even going to help them. Because you've got to have, with DigiByte, you've got to have your 5 different algorithms, and you've got to have a decent split between them because of the way that the multi-shield works for our multi-algorithm. You can't just have everybody showing up. Like we couldn't have with Bitcoin these top, let's take even these top 5 pools. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's giving us 60% maybe of the network. You couldn't even take that, throw it at DigiByte, and get anything more than maybe a couple of blocks in a row. It's just not going to work, and so your mining profitability is very quickly going to be smacked down to very, very little. And so the way that we've got with our multi-algo mining here, and we're going to have an exchange come out kind of soon. I'm not too sure. I won't go into the specifics. They've actually gone and done some really cool insights into DigiByte and our multi-shield, and how many figures was it? 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think it was like 9 figures worth that you needed to even begin to attempt an attack on the network because of this distribution and because of the multi-algo side of it. So this is something that Odocrypt is looking to improve, kind of wrap this all back up and bring it all back. This is what Odocrypt is looking to improve upon, is kind of shrink down those larger parts even more and allow more people individually at home, like you say, sort of similar to Vertcoin, what you're bringing out with your, Verthash, to allow more people with commodity hardware to participate. So it's not going to be, do I go to college class credit? Yeah, math is hard. Sorry, Chris just mentioned something in the chat here. And I'm struggling with the math. Anyway, it's basically going to, the idea being sort of similar to Vertcoin. We want that participation from people because it's beneficial for the security of the network, not just from a hash power perspective, but from the decentralization. And now that's something that we've seen a lot of people talk about when it comes to proof of stake. Things like Ripple basically saying this is why we wanted to do this, was to prevent 1 or 2 mining pools. The irony that 1 or 2 companies now control it as a stake network is not lost on me. Don't think that I'm advocating for them.
I was about to say, how did that conversation go with them? Because I would love to sit in a room with them, side by side, across the table from them, and be like, explain yourself. Because I'm going to have a poster board here of, this is cryptocurrency. This is what cryptocurrency is. Explain yourself, because when they own 50% of the circulating amount and you have to deposit, I think, what was it, 20 Ripple to, or it may even be more, just to open up a wallet. That's and how that, so that is by definition a security. When it's control, if Ripple goes out of business, the blockchain or that currency dies. One of the facets of being able to operate inside of the United States, at least, and not be a security is if the Vertcoin development team stops, we all just disappear. Vertcoin doesn't die; it continues to run. So there's not.
Look at Dogecoin, for example. Dogecoin hasn't had active development since 2014.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, it's had a little bit, but you understand what I'm getting at. It's not had a committed team that have worked on it day in and day out. They're still running on, I think it's Bitcoin 0.14? 0.14 maybe? No, it can't even be that new.
Did they at least patch the inflation vulnerability?
No, they didn't. And I'll tell you why. This is hilarious because they're too old that the code wasn't even in there. How great is that? Oh,
that's right. Yeah, so that got implemented not long ago, so it didn't even get put in for them. But all the other security upgrades and stuff of that nature, I guess they haven't adopted either. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's, the entire value proposition of the coin relies around the logo and the meme that surrounds it. Yeah, which I think is hilarious. I think it is a staple of cryptocurrency that even exists. I think the nerd in all of us find that absolutely hysterical. But it would be really cool, and I don't know if you can do it, but you brought up the fact that they haven't done any updates in forever. It'd be able to pull up the GitHub work that projects have done, because most of the cryptocurrency projects, all of the work is on GitHub, outside of people like Ripple, because it's all in the company. But you could see how much work they're doing, contributing and commenting back and stuff of that nature, because I guarantee you that a lot of coins that are much higher on the coin market cap than we are, you haven't heard from or known of any work done to them in years. But they're there.
Well, the hard part is, right? Like, so we get this a lot. We basically, or at least we don't so much get it, but I see out there people basically go, I tell you what, I'm gonna let's do this because let's teach some people some cool stuff here. You're gonna learn some awesome stuff here, people. Be prepared. I'm gonna bring up the GitHub repo.
Okay.
So this is the DigiByte GitHub here. Now you can see when the last commit was. I approved a tiny patch which updated the README to include our block count. You can see when this was last modified. Other than that, most things kind of say 6 months or a year ago. Anybody who looks at this on the surface level is basically going to go, well, they updated the README and they haven't done shit for 6 months, which is not true because they're only looking at the master branch. Mm-hmm. So if we click up here where it says branch and we bring down master, we can see a whole lot of different branches. And if we go 6.17.1, we can then see that the last commit was 19 days ago. And we can see there's a whole lot of development here, updated a month ago, updated 3 months ago. We've got a bunch of different stuff happening on here. And this is where those other commits are happening. Here we go, merge pull request, reserve bits a month ago, rah-de-rah. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly Dogecoin GitHub. Let's see if I can find it. Very currency. Dogecoin/Dogecoin. That was difficult. Come on. Click on this. Right, so if we go to Dogecoin, you can see that their last commit to their master branch was a year ago, almost to the day, January 22nd, 2018. That was in their master branch. Now, they do have a bunch of other branches down here as well. 1.17. The last commit on 1.17 actually happened on October 1st last year. So it's not just about when people go to GitHub and they see that little thing up the top right, the date stamp, which says it was last changed here. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, a lot of people that are putting out, and I'm sure you probably get this as well from Vertcoin, the people will put out and say, there's been, actually, we can click on the Insights tab, I think. There's only issues. I don't know where you can go to find it, but you can see the amount of commits. Anyway, so people will use that as an aspect to criticize a project. On the one hand, yes, it's an interesting way to kind of keep up with things. But at the same time, because these are already fully working blockchains, mm-hmm. you don't need a team of 100 people working 24/7 on it. It's a complete waste of time and waste of money and waste of effort.
And that's one of the things that will make them not a security. If you need a team to operate it and to run the servers for it to work, that makes you a security, and that's what Ripple is. I mean, I've had people argue with me day in and day out. They're, they love Ripple, and they'll say, I don't want this to turn into the bash of the other coins, show. But, when it comes to Ripple, it's for anybody to say that that's not a security and they're not going to be slapped by the SEC, which they will get warning, they will get word first from the SEC, hey, we're coming, we're going to label you security, you need to meet all these requirements. At that point, Ripple will be like, all right, I'm turning off the servers, I'm cashing out, and then we're going to take all this money and the technology, and we're going to apply it to the banks and the stuff of that nature that we've been, touting as partnerships all
well, the
along.
Banks use Xtract, but they don't even care about XRP. Exactly. They don't give a shit.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of people that are left holding the bag on that. But at the end of the day,
and we saw that with Bitcoin. We saw people swear black and blue. Now, here's the really ironic thing. It's in the freaking Genesis block. And we started with this. It says in the Genesis block that the chancellor is on the brink of the second, not the first bailout for the banks, but the second bailout for them, because banks can't be trusted. Don't trust the banks, people. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah, it's funny that is what started cryptocurrency, and now there is a coin that touts banking as its selling point. But I'm not going to knock anybody who invests into it. Do what you want with your own money. I just know for me, I'm here for cryptocurrency and for the original, not the original vision, but the actual authenticity of cryptocurrency.
For sure. So what I want to quickly do is I'll quickly wrap this up, though. What people can do is if you go to GitHub and you're looking there, even if you don't understand 90% of what's on there, like, so if I go into the source and if I come down here and I'm going to click on chain.cpp. Now, this is kind of funny because this is where they merged the OXPOW, which was their merge mining with Litecoin, where they took the support from Namecore all the way back in 2015. This was the last major update. It was back in 2015. Mm-hmm. I don't understand any of this, but what I do understand is that when you're looking at the project's homepage, you go up to the URL, add /releases. I've been here obviously before, it's coming up in my history. You can see these releases. They actually did one in, this is the beta version, in November 17, 2018. What do you know? And so this is another way that you can kind of gauge things as well. Like, these are where the last releases happened. These are also, we've got beta, we've got alpha, we've got alpha, we've got alpha, alpha. The last release was back in 2015 for Dogecoin. So like Kat mentioned in the chat here, it's amazing just how much recognition, I suppose, a brand can give you, especially if somebody's had a founder who works for Coinbase and, yeah, right? Like, brand recognition apparently matters a lot when you're talking about CoinMarketCap, because their last official release was in 2015. That was like 4 years ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, and also that's the thing too, is that the people who are in the space, a lot of the people, they're here, they came during the 2017 run-up, and they're here to make a quick dollar. That's what they thought it was going to be. They may not have necessarily came here for the vision of cryptocurrency, for the reason why it was created because of the bank failures in 2008, for the advancements of being able to exchange funds with people all around the world without having to go through a centralized thing like the Federal Reserve here in the United States. You know, that those things are not why they showed up. They showed up because they thought they could make a quick buck. And unfortunately, the first place they're going to go to is CoinMarketCap. They're going to see who the biggest, coins are on that, and then that's where they're going to throw their money, because they don't look at the coin, they don't understand any of it. They just see big dollars and big numbers, and they just roll with it. Or if it's available on Coinbase, or the exchange that allows you to convert your fiat currency over to a cryptocurrency, whatever tokens or coins that are available there, that's where you go. Unfortunately, the majority of people, I would say, do not get much deeper into the whole space than that. And I'm hoping things like this, the educational aspect, the expanding upon the what different projects are doing and why it's a good idea to look into certain projects versus others. I'm hoping that this will contribute to people being able to make a more educated decision in the future as to what they do in the space. I don't care if you're investing money or if you're just devoting time, you know, you got to think at the end of the day, everybody's time is worth a certain amount. So it doesn't even take you putting money in order to contribute into the space with your time. And I just want to make sure that people that are putting their time in, that they're putting it into places, you know, that are reputable and are actually here for the right reasons. Because unfortunately, as a lot of people have gotten burned, there's not everybody out there is trying to do the honest thing, trying to make the exchange of funds across the world using a blockchain that anybody can contribute to, or anybody can mine with, or anything. Not everybody is here to do that. Not everybody is here to be open source. Not everybody is here to allow you to communicate with them directly, you know, even if they're a developer or an ambassador for a project or something like that. A lot of these people, you can't get in touch with them. You know, look for projects that are willing to engage and to be open and to be honest with the community that they're involved with, and other projects too. You know, one of the things that I like about this is something that I had tweeted about a month ago, talking about crypto tribalism and how it is detrimental to the space as a whole. You know, DigiByte and Vertcoin, there's a lot of values that we share as projects. Some of our visions and things we're focusing on are different, but we can learn from each other. We can, you may be able to provide me an answer to a problem that we're trying to solve, that's something that we couldn't have thought about. But if we're so locked down and our communities are so locked down into crypto tribalism, that advancement can't happen. The betterment of cryptocurrencies and crypto in general doesn't take place because everybody's so locked down and my coin's the best and that other coin's a shit coin, and you know, all that stuff. And I'm hoping things like this break down those barriers.
I can actually speak to that directly. So you bringing that up is actually perfect, because I was talking with our developers earlier in the week. Yeah. Vertcoin have actually forked the DigiByte mobile wallet. So, you know, like, it's people helping people out here.
Yeah.
Hopefully we've given you a good base to build on.
Yeah. yeah, and that's one of the benefits to being open source too, is anybody can fork off of our software. And we don't charge you for it. Unlike some exchanges that want to charge for upgrading their software, you know.
But the funny thing is, right, like, so we are also a fork of the original Bread wallet. Mm-hmm. Which is what Litecoin's Loaf wallet is also a fork of. And so, like, it's like we're not even mad, right? Like, this is what's supposed to happen. People come to us. We were talking about this, and somebody mentioned, they were like, well, shouldn't we be charging them? And I'm like, dude, do you even know where the DigiByte mobile applications originally came from? Mm-hmm. And they're like, no, where? They came from Bread wallet. Mm-hmm. Who's Bread wallet? Well, now they're called BRD, and they've got tokens and stuff on them and things like that. And we basically we took the same for the DigiByte core wallet, was actually, again, not created from scratch like you have with something, say, like Monero. Mm-hmm. We're both based off what is essentially Bitcoin's core code base that Satoshi began working on a decade and a half ago now. So
yeah, I mean, why would you go through, if something is working, and like in our case, the big reason was we wanted to stay CPU, GPU, you know, consumer grade hardware mineable. You know, why would you start to rebuild that will all over again? There's absolutely nothing wrong with building on top of the successes of previous generations of software. And just as much as we would love anybody to build on top of our stuff, you know, a lot of people had talked about when we built this, when we developed the foundation, a lot of people were worried that we were becoming centralized because you have a legal entity that is now, you know, the holder of either trademarks or merchandise or what have you, a legal footground for people to point to and be like, okay, there's Vertcoin. Well, a lot of people were worried that we were becoming centralized. And, you know, we explained that in order to advance to the next steps of being able to be a commodity that people can use to go and buy t-shirts or to pay their employees or what have you, you need some sort of legal entity for these other legal entities like the IRS, like the SEC, like the CTF. You know, all of these groups have to interface at some point. Yeah. Now, the cool thing is that all of our stuff will be open source, just like our project is. And, you know, the board members, they're not there for life. there will be elections for new board members down the road. So anybody that has a desire to do it, wants to contribute, they can always apply whenever the next, because I think ours is every year we have elections. And then we also have term limits. So unlike people in our Congress here in the United States, any politician in general, we have term limits. So you can't be the chairman of the board of the foundation for 25 years because...
Well, you could do what they do in Russia and just step down and then get magically reelected the next term.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's... But see, that goes back to honest intentions. The honest intentions of the Russian person is not to lose power. It's to shift power for a little bit to give the illusion that he no longer has power, but when in reality he had power the entire time. With us... Go ahead.
I want to kind of also mention that it's not just the Vertcoin Foundation, and that there is nothing stopping somebody else from coming along and starting up something similar. So I can talk to that because we've also had something with the in DigiByte. We've got our DigiByte awareness team, who are specifically, it's a team of people who've come together, they've formed, and they've specifically said we want to build awareness and we want to build the brand for DigiByte. And there's nothing stopping that kind of thing from happening, I guess, as well for Vertcoin, like a second foundation. Like we've seen that with the Ethereum Classic. It's not just one supporting entity that is supporting the development of Ethereum Classic. Again, they're completely separate from us in terms of their whole, like they're not even UTXO, but that's kind of the mindset, is that you don't just have to have the one Vertcoin supporting company. But obviously, like you say, when you're dealing with other companies and things like that, so we were actually going to have a partnership. We went through several interviews, myself included, along with a couple of other people, for a rather large NBA team. And so we're talking like national top level, and we were almost at the stage of sponsoring them before it, again, obviously, as you're well aware, everything always comes down to money. And we don't have that kind of 7-figure funds for it. We could have gone out and tried to fundraise and things, but at the end of the day, we decided it wasn't quite the best fit. But these particular entities, be they government or be they corporate, want to interface with another kind of an entity. They don't want to interface and just have Canen from Vertcoin's cell phone number. That's not enough, because what if you're sick at the time, you've come down with the flu or something, who do they then get hold of? They don't know. They want specifically a company that they can approach. So yeah, I don't think personally there's anything wrong with having a foundation, a supporting entity. If anything, I would encourage it, and I would encourage more of it. I would encourage more people to start up that kind of a supporting entity.
Yeah, that's one thing that we really try to lean on our community is that, it's not just, we can't do it all by ourselves. While, you have the development team that's working on the development, we want anybody who wants to contribute or wants to learn, we want them to participate, because at the end of the day, we always need help. There's never enough bodies, and especially like you guys know as well, we don't have all these funds to go around to hire more people and stuff of that nature. It's one of the downsides to not having an ICO, not having a pre-mine, not having airdrops or master nodes and all other stuff. It is a downside, but we believe that struggle of being able to function on limited funds that are donated to us, one, we're much more responsible with how we spend those funds, because we take that stuff into account that this was given to us. It wasn't just
very
generated out of thin
air. Wanting to be responsible with people's, what they've given to you, really. Yeah,
and we take a lot of care with that, but we also understand that in order to advance, to grow, to contribute to mass adoption and stuff of that nature, there are certain consensuses that or there are certain things that you're going to have to kind of adopt, such as the legal entity with the foundation, in order to facilitate that mass adoption. Now, everybody talks about mass adoption. Nick and them talks about the massive amount of money that's coming in and stuff of that nature. The decentralization of the mining and the consensus is what is key in order to not turn into a bank, but you still have to have some legal entities or some way to interface with the fiat world until everybody is on crypto. For the next 50 years, there's going to be that exchange from fiat to crypto and crypto back to fiat until one country decides to have the balls to say, nope, our whole monetary system is crap. We're going strictly Vertcoin, or we're going strictly DigiByte, or we're going strictly Bitcoin. Until that happens, you have to have that interchange, and you have to have that ability to communicate, and you need...
Unless you're mining it. Which
Correct.
you can only do if everybody can do it on their own home computer with the GPU.
Correct.
Well,
yep. Definitely, no doubt. Yeah. But yeah, I think the future is going to be really bright in the space, and I'm hoping that we can get over this. What are they calling it now? The crypto winter, where the market is basically dead. People aren't interested. You see, and something else that I would say for everybody out there listening. Look for the projects, like DigiByte, Vertcoin. We're still building. We're still trying to educate. We're still trying to advance, even when nobody's paying attention. When nobody is, in the space as compared to a year ago, nobody is. The general numbers are nobody's paying attention, but we're still trying to advance the technology because there's an end goal in mind. Unfortunately, the true survivors are showing their strengths now from a technological standpoint, where the people who were just here for the quick pump and dump, they're fading away. And you see that all throughout the crypto sphere.
So I've personally, I have absolutely nothing against people wanting to make money, especially off of trading.
Yeah.
If they can do that and they can profit from it, then that's completely up to them. Because DigiByte and also Vertcoin are both permissionless blockchains. You do whatever you want with your funds. There was actually something that I put up on Twitter the other day. Hell, where was that? Because that was hilarious. I couldn't believe it. It was... Nope, not that I regret mornings, because I don't do mornings. Where was that? Yeah, here we go. A developer, a core developer of Bitcoin came out and said, just a reminder, you should not use Segwit for non-Lightning wallets, which is basically like most of them out there. Mm-hmm. It is harmful to Bitcoin by enabling larger blocks, increasing the growing rate of centralization. Well, you're already getting kind of centralized. Look at the mining. But I came out and I replied and I said, hey, DigiByte people, you do whatever you want with your DigiByte. And the same, I would imagine, will apply to Vertcoin.
Yeah.
If you want to use BEC32 wallet address formats, because it's going to have DGB1 at the start, so you know it's a DigiByte address. You've got something as well for Vertcoin. I presume it's BTC1.
Yep.
Go ahead and do it. And in fact, you should do that, arguably, because there's no ambiguity around what kind of an address you are sending to. You know that you're going to be sending to that kind of a wallet. Like, you basically, like, if you want to use Segwit, you want to use Legacy, it is your funds. You do whatever you want.
Yeah, and I mean, that should be the advocate. You should advocate for that no matter what project you are. At the end of the day, once you start telling people what they do with their funds, are you really all about decentralization? Are you, because now you're starting to mimic what MasterCard or Visa, kind of like where we've seen where these payment processors are now censoring people that they don't necessarily agree with on a political standpoint of not allowing transactions, and the stuff we're seeing with Patreon pulling people off, not to segue it down to, more of a censorship political type discussion, but, I don't ever want to be in a position to where anybody at Vertcoin tells somebody that you're not allowed to use your coins that you have mined or that you have purchased off an exchange. I don't ever want to be in a power to where I have the ability, let alone the fortitude to say you can't do what you want with them. I want to enable people.
Point about before. Would you tell people what they can do with their funds if you know they've been taken from stolen from an exchange? Yeah.
Yeah, that goes back to this is why it's a hard question to answer, because it is a slippery slope. Wherever you have, it's like when we had the 51% attack, we had I'm not going to name the project, but they highly praise they say they're not master nodes, but they're pretty much notaries. and they were like, if you used us, you wouldn't have gotten a 51% attack because we could have told everybody else on the network what is the correct chain. And it's like, okay, well, but that's not a power that a small select individuals that, you know, are friends with the development team who originally created it, or in the case of masternodes, spent thousands of dollars in order. They shouldn't have that power. Same goes for, you know, an exchange. Is that once you open that genie, once you get that genie out the bottle, you can't put that stuff back. And all it takes is someone who has a malicious intent to exploit that. And I would much rather live on the edge of absolute freedom and maximum responsibility than to hope and trust that somebody doesn't act maliciously.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe we should look at wrapping this up. I want to also add something to that specifically around why the whole kind of
we're 2 hours
and things like that. Sorry,
we've been going for 2 hours now.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. It's good. Kat mentioned in the chat here, she says, can we at least agree this isn't a one winner take all end game with cryptocurrencies? Now, you and I have especially mentioned this in our last one that we did with Nick, the Hitman Hellman, where this is definitely not a winner take all. There is certainly more than enough of the pie to go around. But what I would personally rather see is genuine products that fill a need, that have enough of a differentiator from Bitcoin to warrant existence. I would rather not see things show up like a blockchain that is a 75% pre-mine and uses staking for its security, because that's just bad news. I'll bring this up. So this is the link that I went and sent to you. Give me 1 second to bring it over here, because this person, they talk about forks will show the differences and balances between wallets. And so they talk specifically about, let's look at the black background with the white text. I'll quickly read this out because it's absolutely fascinating. And now this is why Vertcoin and DigiByte are both, I've gone and lost it, are both specifically proof of work. So the reason trustless crypto took until 2009 to be created was because of the Byzantine generals problem. It's very hard to solve. Bitcoin did it, Nano isn't, and no POS coin is Byzantine fault tolerant. This might be the case that only proof of work coins such as DigiByte or Vertcoin can be. Nano's DPoS, even though the proof of work is just an anti-spam measure, and this is also back to the whole why you haven't implemented those notaries and things like that. Now, until another solution is found, maybe it's a hybrid, but then really it's just, again, proof of work doing solving. Everything else is bright lights and fancy packaging to sell to the masses for an easy profit, which I like. I can understand that. Consider this. You are in a bunker. You are trying to verify the current balance of wallet XYZ, and you're getting multiple incoming data sets claiming different balances and different levels of stake, different levels of votes. How do you determine who is right? There are two options: a system that can be verified within your bunker, and that this is the particular hash, and if so, this is the longest chain. Then this is the correct one. Or secondly, you have to trust a third party to inform you which one is correct. Now, at a basic level, you're trusting that the delegated node relays the correct data, and that is assuming that you can even be certain that they truly hold the majority of the voting power. This second option is not trustless. It reintroduces trusted third parties and is therefore not a trustless Byzantine fault-tolerant system. You are implementing, effectively, what is a bank?
Yeah, it's like, what's the point? Why not just go with a bank? You know, that's any time, and that's why we focus and DigiByte focuses on decentralization to the T, because any time where you have that sort of centralization, and I mean, and they came out the woodwork of, it is not masternodes, it is not centralized, you don't know what you're talking about. It's like, well, wait a minute, a notary is controlled by 40 or less. There's 40 or less nodes that are in control of, I assume, less than 40 people. And they are all in communication with each other. And it also doesn't help that this particular project used the notary nodes to attack a project that ran on top of its network. So, you know, they have a history of using it maliciously. But yeah, this is the point of proof of work. This is why cryptocurrency...
You don't have to trust anybody.
Yeah, and you shouldn't. At the end of the day, it's verify before you trust, and that's the whole point of proof of work. Yeah,
yeah.
It's. But that's,
it is the only true solution for that Byzantine fault problem. So, yeah. One of the questions that we've got in the chat here: what's going on with? What's going to be the first community collaboration between Vertcoin and DigiByte? Is Vertcoin community going to join DigiByte for help in Venezuela? That's actually not a bad idea. Like, this was mostly just a collaboration because Canen and I both hang out in a channel for crypto trading, basically. And they also, so Nick does videos on fundamentals of coins and things like that to keep up with the news. Todd does videos on the charts and things like that. And we just kind of hit, like, the thing is we're both very similar projects in a lot of ways. We're both also incredibly different in a lot of other ways. Will we end up doing some actual collaboration over and above just some cool videos? I don't know. Maybe.
The possibility is there. There's nothing stopping it. I mean, we just need a reason, an end goal to do it, and where we both can contribute. I think, and this is part of the.
Any ideas? Send them in the chat.
Any ideas? I mean, please let us know. I mean, I know this is part of the reason why I think this is useful, is because the relationship that we are building right now, just through communications and sharing of knowledge and talking about particular topics based upon our points of view, could lead to complete breakthroughs 10, like a year, 2 years down the road, even 6 months, can lead to complete breakthroughs and solve a problem that nobody else has been able to solve, simply because communication is happening. That's why crypto tribalism is horrible in the space, because it's limiting advancements of everything.
And this is something that we talked about a lot in our last one as well with the tribalism, and this also comes back to a bit like what Kat mentioned about there not being one winner take all. But there are so many different aspects, and we're not all after the same end goal or the same, like, we don't have the same purpose specifically. But at the same time, I think when we hold on to this kind of a tribalism and we basically say that one particular coin is no good compared to another because they do things slightly differently or they have slightly different values, we then also detract largely from our ability to come alongside and help people avoid the genuine BitConnects of this space.
Yeah, definitely.
And so even if people out there are only interested in buying Vertcoin, that's totally fine if they want to come along and tune into these particular videos, because A, they're learning some cool stuff, hopefully. B, I really hope they're being entertained. And C, hopefully we can take this knowledge and avoid this tribalism and actually use it when it matters. We don't want to be like the boy who cried wolf, where we're going, this project is a terrible project and you shouldn't trust DigiByte because they're doing things differently with their 5 mining algorithms and it's a dumb idea. What we need, I think, more as a space overall is to be helping new players. What we've got right now is equivalent to like the dial-up internet back in the early 90s when nobody used it and nobody had email and things like that. The 99% are still out there. We need to be more focused rather than, I mean, yeah, on the one hand, let's obviously focus on calling a spade, but let's focus on what we can do collectively to bring that 99% in and help them to understand why it is that we do what we do and we're interested in what we're interested, and why the banks can't be trusted, why that's in the Genesis block.
Yeah. And you think, I'm wondering, I haven't necessarily seen a real attempt at some of the larger, I guess, people in the space, the people who have a lot of eyes on them, the bigger projects, I guess you could say. I've not seen them do this as far as the breaking down of crypto tribalism. It's very much, I'm in my little camp and it is what it is. And unfortunately, their communities kind of echo that as well. It's kind of interesting if this is started by, you know, the smaller volunteer non-ICO projects that, you know, we start the movement that is a fire that's lit underneath of the cryptosphere that brings on the whole next generation of technology that solves even more problems.
Well, so one of the things I think that's really important is, let's say somebody comes along into the space and they find out about DigiByte and they're like, this is interesting, I like this, but I don't like how Josiah takes rants on Twitter occasionally. And so I'm not actually going to invest in DigiByte. I'm going to go somewhere else, and I'm going to look at Vertcoin. So to me, I don't think that really, I mean, on the one hand, yeah, that matters obviously because I potentially turn somebody off a project that I'm quite heavily involved in myself. And so there's obviously opportunity for self-growth there for myself. But that aside, the fact that somebody's now gone along instead and they've done some research and they've looked into it and they've decided, you know what? DigiByte might not be for me. Bitcoin might not be for me, but Vertcoin is. I think that is freaking cool because they've done enough research to understand the differences at a really in-depth or enough of an in-depth level to understand the differences and why they are interested in Vertcoin.
And if anything, that will that could even turn them back to being like, my initial impression in this hypothetical scenario, that initial impression that I had of X project, DigiByte, whatever, that could revert them. Let me give it another look. Let me double check and see if my initial hesitations are valid.
Well, hopefully they understand that because we're a permissionless blockchain, anybody can go out and say anything or do YouTube videos.
Yeah, no
and and hopefully they won't shoot the messenger, right? I'm sure you can relate to that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one of the things that me in my position, I'm kind of the face that is associated with all of the people that we have that does marketing, reaching out to merchants and stuff of that nature because I put my face out there. And I always have that in mind that, my face and what I say, there are people who are just getting into this, and it's so daunting anyways. The whole wrapping the concept around you're now responsible for your own money and that there's no insurance. It's huge. It's hard enough as it is. So I always try to make things as easy to understand, as palatable for the new individual that's coming on. But I also don't shy away from the meat and potatoes of what is blockchain and what a real blockchain is. And I think, you do a good job of that as well, as far as handling that meat and potatoes and calling out not necessarily scams, but things that are like, that's not really exactly the way you're saying it. I think that does a good service as well, because people who don't know, they just go with the flow, and whatever gets the most likes on Twitter or retweets, they go with it. And I think anybody who pushes back that has put in the time and the effort to really learn this stuff is doing a great benefit, because the last thing you want is just monolithic think and no one questioning anything. That's part of being trustless, is you question everything.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. So when you show up, let's say that, I mean, the hilarious thing, like I have regular chats with my mother about this, and even my wife, they don't, through their own acknowledgement, they don't know what the hell we're on about for the most part when they're watching this. So shout out to my Nana, who's probably tuned in, and she's like 65 or whatever. And anyway, I would imagine that she probably doesn't understand 99% of what we've talked about, because it is relatively technical. Like, it's in-depth technical stuff. But if somebody shows up and they look at CoinMarketCap and they go, right, number 3, and they see Ripple and they're like, this is used by the banks, they'll go, I understand banks. I know what's going on here. They're using banks. It has a value proposition. I like this. I'm going to invest in it. It's only when you actually stop and you are not criticizing so much, but more critical of each project and why it's made those decisions and what it is about versus what it could be, versus why not just use Bitcoin, that you actually get that really kind of interesting understanding. And unfortunately, most people don't go that far. They're basically like, do I understand what they're doing? Yes, I understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. They don't stop to think, is it a good idea?
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's the stuff that caught a lot of people up in ICOs over the last 2-3 years. Is, they saw the bright flashing lights and the pretty signs, but they didn't actually dig into it. We want people, and the dollar. We want people to dig into it, and we're hoping that conversations like this help people down the path of digging into projects, understanding it, and fundamentally understanding the purpose of it even existing, other than just a quick way to make money. Because unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people got into the space for that alone, and they didn't know what they were actually doing.
So and every time we have a bull run, we get more and more people that are in there just for the quick. And that's totally fine. If you can make a quick buck along the way, that's great. if you are then causing other people to lose a shit ton of money, like we've seen with BitConnect, not cool. But we see more people and more people every bull run. It gets bigger and it gets bigger and it gets bigger. And then these people again, like, so we saw this in middle of 2017, we had a run with DigiByte because of all of the exposure from the City Tech for Integrity Challenge and things like that. And then afterwards, because it went up, like DigiByte was actually a top 10 coin for a little while as a result of that for like 2 days. And then it comes back down. And so then you see the disgruntled, what's going on here? And I was promised millions and millions, and why have I not got that? And it's like, well, A, I don't have a crystal ball. B, we're here specifically for the tech. We're here to, like, as shitty as it sounds, we're here to change the world. Right? We're not specifically here to. There are better ways for you and me to be out there making a quick buck, and an ICO is definitely one of them.
Yeah. That, well, and then also, I mean, right now for me and you probably as well, I could have made a whole lot more money digging ditches in the amount of time I've invested into operating inside of this space, just time-wise. If I'm getting paid minimum wage, because remember, at the end of the day, I'm a volunteer. I don't get paid. This is from a passion standpoint, and is why I do it. And you know, I think, you know, you as well, it's you know, our passion for the projects, our passion for the space, our passion for the vision of what can be, and the ability to contribute to that is why we're here. And, you know, I can't speak for the majority of the crypto sphere, but I know a lot of people do get paid. There's a lot of people that are getting laid off right now. Look at how many companies inside of crypto have cut their staff. And, you know, that's one thing I pointed out to somebody. I was like, I don't care how bad the bear market gets. You can't cut my pay any more than zero. So we're going to, you know, regardless of the price. And that's something that we don't talk. So we specifically at Vertcoin do not talk about the price, because that's another thing to avoid with regulations. We don't want to seem to influence price or coax people. You will never hear us say invest in us, because we don't want you to. We want you to be here for the tech. If you want to speculate, go for it, but we don't talk about price. We catch hell for that. A lot of people, you need to be concerned about the price. And it's like, well, if I was getting a salary from the project and all of my salary was based around the value of the currency that was initially pre-mined, or we had the ICO, then yeah. But no, we don't have to worry about that. And, you know, it puts DigiByte, it puts projects that are not reliant on the price in a great position to succeed in a time like this, because we will be around for the next bull run, because cycles happen, you know, in a market. And as long as projects are not with all to the moon, like some projects have been, where now they're laying off 80% of their people because they thought it was going to keep going the way it was. It's better to take a more conservative stance when it comes to salaries and the way that we handle our donations. Both of us, we're very conservative in how we spend that. And I think the same would go if we went to go hire a full-time developer. We would want to make sure that, hey, we can at least pay for this person for 2 years right now, and not have to worry. Because the last thing we would want is to hire somebody and then have to fire them 4 months later because all of a sudden the whole market decided to take a crap, you know? Which
happens very regularly. I think maybe we should actually use that as a really good point for us to wrap this up. And in our chat over here, we've got some interesting things, people talking about collaborations between DigiByte and Vertcoin, and you specifically talking about being not just frugal, but diligent with the funds that people donate. Perhaps that's something that we should look at doing together, and maybe going out and improving the world in a very real and tangible way. So DigiByte's done something like that specifically with Venezuela. Why don't we look at doing that? We can spitball some ideas off the camera afterwards, but we're already coming up on 2.5 hours, and this has been one really long, but an awesome, awesome chat. And I'm so glad we've been able to do this, and like you say, break down some of that tribalism and help show people that it's not a winner takes all. There's not like, we're not out here with our knives and daggers trying to stab everybody. And there are other really cool projects out there that you can get behind as well. You don't just have to have one. Like, I'm not sure if I should be admitting this, but I don't have any Vertcoin myself. But I love the project, and I like what it's about with the GPU mining and the distribution of it. And I think people should be able to be okay with discussing the benefits and the disadvantages of each cryptocurrency without taking it personally. Really.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you and I, as we can see, we could talk for ages around different topics and this stuff, but that's because we're so passionate about it. I think it would be cool if the community lets us know what you think about this type of discussion. If you want us to talk about anything else, any obviously we can talk about new things that are coming up for us, where I touched on algorithms and Josiah touched on the new algorithm that they're doing. Obviously we can make announcements as far as new things that are coming up, but if you want us to hit on any particular thing in the crypto space or anything like that, let us know. We can always do another one of these. And as you can see, we can talk ad nauseum about a lot of different topics and stuff of that nature. But I think this was really good as far as initiating that breakdown of the barrier and just having projects communicate with each other and seeing the fruits of this labor will be great. So we can definitely talk more offline and let us know what you guys think. Wrapping up here, I guess my plug would be, make sure if you are on the Vertcoin network or you're participating in the hard fork that's coming up here soon, please upgrade your wallet to the latest version. If you have coins that are on an old wallet and you go to transfer those coins after the fork, you will be on the unsupported chain. So there will be a fork there. So make sure you are with the rest of the community. All of the exchanges except for YoBit, which, whatever, except for them, have agreed to update to they are supporting the fork. All of the majority of the miners that are the mining pools that we have talked to so far that would constitute the majority of the hashing power are supporting the fork. So we are 100% ready to go for the end of this month. And also I would plug, the Vertcoin YouTube, the Discord, Twitter, all that stuff. Reach out to us if you have any questions. If you want us to check out something that's going on with DigiByte, please feel free to share it with us. There's nothing wrong with sharing that. Same goes for Josiah. Anything that you guys are working on or anybody needs to know about, please tell them about it now, and then we can go ahead and wrap this up for the evening.
I think probably one of the things I've not actually done this before in any of my videos, because I hate when people go, be sure to leave a like and subscribe and hit, and because it's like, why would you hit a bell? Bells are usually middle. If you're going to hit it, it's going to hurt. But anyway, what I would like people to do is, if you have any suggestions, like Canen has mentioned, say something in the comments and basically, like, if you'd like for us to discuss something in the future, I know that you've got your hard fork coming up. Why don't we try and catch up around about that time? Maybe not beforehand, because I know that forks can be a bit stressful.
Yep. And
you're always on edge. You don't want something to happen like what happened, obviously, with Ethereum, where they only had 15% on the new wallets, and then they've had to roll it back. And
well, they rushed that was so rushed, they didn't give themselves enough ample time. And also, it doesn't help that community is not exactly all on one page. It's very, as far as the forking aspect,
fragmented as hell.
Yeah, and they don't have not everybody has the same philosophy. So at least with us, it makes it a little bit easier. Everybody is more than happy to put in the work and the effort to go do that fork. But yeah. Yeah, but
we should wrap it up there. And I want to say thank you again for coming on. Thank you so much for for taking the time out of your evening, especially being unpaid. It's been really cool, obviously, to see the people who are in it for the tech and for for changing the world, because the people who are just in it for the quick YouTube videos and things are basically they're not doing videos anymore. Yeah, they're gone. They're up and they've left. Like, you can tell some of the channels, or the channels that were taking the paid promotions, I know, because some of them even reached out to DigiByte and said, hey, we want to feature you. By the way, give us 10 grand. And it's like, what?
Yep. I have 30,000 subscribers. I want 3 BTC in order to do a highlight on your project. It's like, that was one of the reasons why we started our YouTube channel. One, because I have a background in it, but two, why do I need to go and pay somebody? I understand they've developed a market and stuff of that nature, but we can easily get information out to people who want to find it, and this allows us to do things like this, that we can control, and it's not controlled by some other third party, but yeah. thanks again, once again, for being, because we're both on each other's channel. So want to thank Josiah for being on the Vertcoin channel. You know, this dual stream thing is kind of cool. I think we can do this again in the future. Want to thank everybody for joining us here, and like, share, subscribe. You know, we'll go cringy and throw that out there. But let us know.
I feel like a sellout.
No kidding. We've never done that. We've never said like, share, and subscribe. You know, when we almost went up to 1,000 subscribers, we said, hey, subscribe so we can actually, you know, break the 1,000 mark. But thanks again, everybody, for joining. We appreciate it, and we will see you guys again in the next one.
Cheers. Thanks for